How dare you kill my trusted subordinate? Rabbit Ears growled, standing in the bloodied pit he had cleaved. I picked him and his brother off the streets and raised them to be fine young men of flesh and steel. He couldn't be totally positive I had offed his minion before he came crashing down like an impatient meteor. Yes, I substituted part of Twin Two's head with my fist, but who was to say he was already dead by then? No one, because Rabbit Ears already squished Twin Two. While Rabbit Ears spouted shit, I scanned my surroundings for anything to use. Only rubble was near. I stole a glance up the elevator shaft. Boojum was having a hard time against White Beanpole, the latter slinking through the wide beams like a gymnast. I couldn't see Dean or Twin One, they might be fighting on the other side because I could hear gunfire. I wasn't too worried for my best friend because one thing I learned from Finley was that annoying people were hard to kill. And was that Vanessa choking Silver Titties? I snapped my head back to face Rabbit Ears before he could check what I was looking at. He continued his delusional accusations, oblivious to Vanessa's betrayal. I examined his spiked arms. More like road rollers with a rock metal fashion sense. So much for not using AUGs, I thought with a smirk. Seeing what happened to Bouncer Twin 2, I shouldn't push my thrill-seeking tendencies. Rabbit Ears noticed my stare. You forced me to use this, he yelled, shaking his wrecking ball of a fist at me, covered in furious electricity and flecks of Bouncer Twin 2. You made me dishonor myself. I'll have your head for this, Red Hood. Rabbit Ears declared. Nothing will be left after I'm done with you. He charged, hunched over and arms out, his horns pointed forward. I sprang left, palming a couple of stones as I rolled. Gusts blew over me as if a semi-trailer raced past. Should I change his nickname to Chatty Bull? Chatty Bunny also sounded funny. Oh, it rhymed. Rabbit Ears crashed into a stack of wooden crates. Dozens of canned goods rolled across the floor like a spreading puddle. A few reached my feet. Rabbit Ears emerged from the heaps of splintered wood with an angry roar. The wood around him caught fire, caressed by tendrils of electricity. I hurled stones at him. Rabbit Ears didn't bother to evade, jutting his chin out as a challenge. The stones hit his head. I should get a Girl Scout badge for my aim and made him stagger back. The stones got pulverized upon hitting the metal half of his head. For sure, he was surprised by how hard I threw. I didn't aim for the blue device thingy. I was no longer wary of their adumbrary abilities. Vanessa joined our side, so that was a big plus, but I wanted to rub in Rabbit Ears' ugly face that he could use all the AUGs he wanted, and it wouldn't save him. Blanchette wasn't required. I was going to break this bastard's horns myself and shove them up his okay, I'm not going to do that last part. Rabbit Ears chuckled as he massaged his deformed chin. Electricity from his arms wrapped his head, but he didn't seem fazed. Some of his installed bioaugmentronics countered the weakness of the adumbrary. This is going to need a replacement, he said, slurring his words a bit. The fire around him spread to the crates further back, the rising red glow reflected on his metal parts. You have a good throwing arm. But is that all? A metal can connecting with his nose interrupted his blabbering. The can burst open and bathed him with baked beans. Asparagus spears came next, and then mushroom soup. The tea party had nice provisions. I continued throwing every canned good within reach. Mom would be angry at how much food I wasted. I dove out of the way. Again and again, he tried to ram me. More wooden crates caught fire, and metal ones crumpled. Food, mechanical parts, clothes, and whatnot scattered everywhere. I led him away from the elevator shaft, ensuring his back was to it. Are you afraid of me, Red Hood? Rabbit Ears yelled, spit mixed with bright blue liquid flying around. Are the tales of the destruction you caused in La Esperanza a hoax? He leaped at me, slamming down his fists to create more craters. He redecorated his precious base with nothing to show for it. Answer me, he demanded. Show me the monster that destroyed my base. I didn't rush to engage him, just a bit more of playing tag. Dean and the others were winning. Vanessa and Dean were up against White Beanpole. The latter had regrown most of his severed arm. A crumpled metal ragdoll was stuffed into a corner of the steel structure. Silver Titties meeting an unfortunate end before I could give her a better nickname. Bouncer Twin 1 was still not in view, likely already killed by Dean. A bloody Boojum struggled to climb back up to the fight from a few stories below. White Beanpole must have kicked him off the structure. Boojum's healing seemed to be slow without his sucky ability. The fearsome Red Hood turned out to be a coward. Rabbit Ears shouted. I snorted while perched on a metal freight container, carefully watching his next move. Goading wouldn't work if I didn't care squat about others. If you don't want to come, he said, just stand there, and I'll blast you. Rabbit Ears held his electrified arms aloft. The lightning show ceased. Spikes receded into thick metal plates. Next to disappear were his hands into the barrels of his arms. A keen drone started as a drill screwed upwards to replace his left hand. His right arm remained an open hole stump, a huge-ass cannon. Rabbit Ears aimed at me. I jumped off the container. Kaboom! My entire back stung. A minty feeling told me my shirt and skin were torched. There were points with gnawing pain. Several shrapnel lodged into my flesh. I didn't flinch, this was normal for me now. I ran in a wide arc in front of Rabbit Ears. Explosions trailed me. My hair, previously cut by White Beanpole, had grown back, wildly whipped around. Unfortunately, my clothes couldn't regenerate. Though this wasn't the time to think of my appearance or modesty. The fighting had been going on for several minutes, we were undoubtedly past any future that Dean's guardian angel could have seen. Our victory wasn't assured. Rabbit Ears was going strong. A huge smile was on my face while running as the cavern was consumed by fire and the earth quaked from the continuous explosions. It's like I'm in a movie. I made Rabbit Ears angrier by doing a couple of cartwheels, making things more thrilling. I almost spun out of control, given how fast I was going and how little practice I had since my cheerleader days, but I managed to steady myself back to running. I continued left until Rabbit Ears had a view of the elevator shaft. He stopped firing. Rabbit Ears gazed up, spotting White Beanpole chased up to the cavern ceiling by Dean, Vanessa, and Boojum. He uttered a string of curses and pointed his cannon up. This was the opening I was looking for. I sprinted to Rabbit Ears as he shot up at Dean. He noticed me coming with his peripheral vision and next aimed at me. I was too close, less than 10 feet away, but he still fired. I leaped at him. Something fast whizzed below me, and a powerful explosion followed, pushing me closer toward him. I slammed right into the icky brain device on his chest, toppling him over. The brain got squished but didn't burst. Sturdy weird thing. But that wasn't my target. I sat on Rabbit Ears' chest and punched his stupid metal chin. A keen buzzing. The drill came from my left. Acting on instinct and feeling very much unstoppable, I grabbed the noisy drill. Not a very bright idea. It shredded the fingers of my left hand. I held on to it even as it stripped the flesh from my bone. My muscles were torn, and my fingers became powerless. The drill sputtered and sparked but continued to rotate. I grabbed his neck and pushed him back down. It was like trying to choke a tree trunk, his neck was too broad, and my hand too small. Greg! Rabbit Ears bellowed. Daesh! With my mess of a left hand, I pushed the drill away from my face. Couldn't really call it a hand. It was mostly no more, frayed flesh and bits of bones. The drill shook me like a very bumpy ride. I held on tighter to Rabbit Ears' neck, stabbing my fingers through the overlapping metal bands protecting his flesh. He roared again and tried to point his cannon arm at me. I stomped down on the barrel, playing the most painful and risky twister game. The drill weakened. I felt it in the vibrations rocking my body. I stopped blocking it with my stump of an arm, letting it pierce my left shoulder. Shit. A hiss of agony escaped my lips. Tears pooled at the edge of my eyes. I reached forward with my left arm. My two forearm bones were exposed and stabbed Rabbit Ear's bionic eye. He thrashed and twisted his body and actually managed to stand, with me hanging on to his front. I relentlessly forced my left arm into his eye socket. I had his cannon arm in an awkward leglock and kept it away from me. Rabbit Ears retaliated by jabbing his drill into my side. Cramps are worse than this. I raged inside my head. I closed my right hand, taking a chunk from his neck. Rabbit Ears gargled and screamed. Then I pulled myself up to reach my goal. The horns. I managed to grasp Rabbit Ear's right horn. I tugged and broke the upper half off. Then I drove my newfound stake into his other eye. Rabbit Ears milled about before falling to his knees. "You're going to die the same way as your subordinate," I told Rabbit Ears. My left hand regenerated inside his head. I pushed his horn deeper into his brain. How sweet. He stopped groaning. His muscles relaxed. Did I win? Rabbit Ears fell forward and pinned me to the ground. I stepped hard on the back of Rabbit Ear's neck, crushing his spine to ensure he was dead. Then I bent down and snapped off his other horn. Another souvenir. I shouldn't forget or lose this one, unlike Vanessa's necklace. Or should I shove this horn up? Nah. I stared at my left hand. It was a fascinating sight. Bones formed and lengthened like hardening plaster. Muscle followed, its strands thickening as it coiled up the bones like vines climbing trellises. Then a blanket of skin covered my flesh. A nasty scream from above. White Beanpole was falling, his outfit now more red than white. His arms flailed at a funny angle. Bright sparkles, like an army of fireflies, appeared out of nowhere and balled around him as he fell. Is he slowing down? I mumbled. The power-canceling device on Rabbit Ear's chest had stopped working. I threw the horn I held at White Beanpole. And that was my souvenir gone. Confirming my hunch, the fireflies around him dissipated. I raised a brow. That's it. White Beanpole didn't move. I didn't get to see what his powers actually did. There should be a line here about his boss being the end of him, I whispered. Maybe I should try my hand at one-liners next time. I was never good at being quippy. You're permanently fired from life. Okay, that was lame. Errand. Dean, Boojum, and Vanessa descended from the top of the elevator shaft. Dean wasn't exactly climbing down, but more like letting herself fall from beam to beam without losing her footing or hurting herself. She was furthest down. Her guardian angel must be back online. I slowly exhaled. It's overtime for credits to roll. Errand, errand, errand. Dean leaped off the metal structure, about a story off the ground. She had lost her mask. Then she ran to me with arms wide open. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. She hugged me. Thank the Mother Core you're alive. Mother Core, I muttered. I don't think you're supposed to say that to me. Oh my gosh. Dean gasped. Her eyes went wide. You're right. Is it offensive to you? Of course not. I smiled. Just messing with you. I patted her arm with my newly regenerated left hand. You look awful, she began to say. Not everyone can be as beautiful as you, I interjected with a mischievous grin. I'm not kidding around, Errand, Dean sternly replied. She wiped my cheeks. There's blood all over you. And your clothes. We need to cover you. I didn't listen to Dean's fussing. I leaned left and glanced behind her. Vanessa had reached the floor. She didn't approach us, standing awkwardly at the base of the structure. She rubbed her right arm while looking away from us. Boojum hesitantly dropped to the floor. Half of him probably wanted to leave after everything that had happened, and he was leaving us before shit went down anyway, but he still came down. Probably had many questions in his mind. Boojum glanced at Vanessa, then at the dead rabbit ears, before running to another corpse. I wouldn't have noticed Snark's dead body if Boojum didn't check on it. The body had tumbled away from its previous spot because of all the explosions and was covered by debris and stuff. "Errand, I think this'll do for now." Dean found a wide cloth, maybe a tarp cover, with its lower half on fire. She slapped it on the ground, threw it down, and stomped on it to kill the flames. She brought the still smoking blanket and covered my front. "Thanks very much," I said. Such a caring person. But I hoped she wouldn't be as caring for what we'd have to do. She hugged me again. "Looks like we both need to do some shopping after this." "Dean, listen." I gently pushed her away. "I owe you a lot of explaining." The woman with metal bands on her arm. Dean glanced back at Vanessa. "She told me she's helping us with the eye thing and that she's some double agent." "That's sort of part of it. She also said you've met before. And that you're friends." "We met at Eve, but just once." "As for being friends, it's a complicated story." "You can tell me later," Dean said. "I trust her if you trust her." "I promise I'll explain everything later," I said. "But for now we need to do something about him." I didn't need to explain who him was. Dean turned to Boojum. He approached us while cradling Snark in his arms. Judging by his narrowed eyes and tightly pressed lips, Boojum brought his dead friend along to snack on in case of a fight. Boojum stopped a dozen feet away and loudly said, "So, you're Red Hood?" Dean walked over to him, her hands up to show no threat. "We can explain. Errand is part of our team." "I can piece it together," he said. "Red Hood is with the La Esperanza team." Stories of Red Hood saving people and fighting Adumbri. Everything makes sense now. "Yes, exactly. Dean." She tore the neckline of her shirt, displaying more of her chest. I thought Dean would wipe Boojum's memory with a view of her boobs, but she was pointing at something else. "Look, I have an artificial core, the same as you. Errand and I both have artificial cores. So that's why she covered me with this tarp," I thought, holding onto my makeshift blanket. "If my powers are something the professor wants to keep secret from you," Dean continued, "then Errand is an even bigger secret. We couldn't just reveal she's Red Hood." "Why not?" Boojum said. "If we knew she was Red Hood, we would have been more prepared for the tea party." An accusatory tone crept into his voice. "Isn't she the reason why the tea party attacked the Greaves Tech Fair?" I stole a glance at Dean. She gave me a small nod. "We can't say for sure," I said. "But you're probably right." "Probably." He raised his voice. "Probably. Is that all you can say? Hundreds of people have died because of you." "Boojum, please," Dean stepped closer to him. He brushed her away. "You have to understand." "I understand that my friend is dead," he came nearer, presenting Snark's body. "I understand that the tea party would have gone elsewhere if the two of you didn't attend the tech fair. Why the hell did you have to come to Vegas?" "We have a mission here," I said. "And that mission was to meet Mom." But, of course, Boojum would interpret my statement differently. Dean pummeled the back of Boojum's head. "Arg." Boojum stumbled forward but didn't drop. Dean looked surprised he wasn't knocked down. Boojum twisted back at her. "What the foo?" I grabbed his right wrist. Dean caught his other hand and pulled his arm out. "Take back what you said about Errand." She punched his nose. It wasn't strong enough. She might be unconsciously hesitating. Boojum tried to pull free, we held onto him, keeping his palms facing away. He struggled in vain to touch us. I bent his hand back until his wrist broke. Dean's hits stifled his screams. Erend has been through so much. Dean shouted as Boojum's face became flatter with each swing. Flecks of blood flew. Don't you dare blame her. I'm surprised it's not my fault this time, I thought, trying not to giggle at Dean's reaction. Her guardian angel had probably told her to nod at me, signaling to play along Boojum's misconception that I was the reason the Tea Party gatecrashed the tech fair. He wasn't thinking right with his friend dead, and the guardian angel took advantage of that to make him lash out at me. And that ticked off Dean. At this point it was hard to tell who was the pet between the invisible bastard and Dean. I twisted Boojum's right arm behind his back. Dean's punches continued like a jackhammer. Her face was twisted in a fury, this was the angriest I had ever seen her. Boojum got heavier, and he sagged to the floor. Was he knocked out or just pretending? Dean, stop. I pulled Boojum a step back. Her strike whiffed. Erend, we can't let him live. He knows that. I don't want you to be burdened by this. Burdened? I released Boojum's hand. It limply swayed. He was down for the count but still breathing. I held his head like it was a basketball. Dean's eyes widened as she realized what I was about to do. She reached out but stopped before she touched my arms. She sharply drew her breath as I began to squeeze Boojum's head. A curious puzzled expression flitted her face. Hang on, why am I squeezing? I just get myself dirty. Dirtier. I rotated Boojum's head to face me. His body tried to follow, but Dean held on to his left hand. Then she grabbed his shoulders and held him in place. Boojum's face lost its human features, his mother wouldn't recognize him. Dean was so messed up for doing this to him. I continued to rotate his head full 360 degrees. Bones cracked, skin tore, and streams of blood spurted. He was dead, right? How about one more round? That should do it. Add in a half-turn so Dean wouldn't see Boojum's face she had ruined. I'm so considerate. Dean and I looked at each other over Boojum's shoulder. With no word passed between us, we let go of him at the same time. He dropped with a thud. His head rolled away, trailing blood across the floor. I must have rotated it too much that his neck skin, muscles, bone, and all that got torn off. Dean yelped, doing a tiny dance to avoid the head. Best friends murder tandem, was what I wanted to say aloud. For some inexplicable reason, I was proud of Dean for helping me kill someone. Second time now, is it? But I held my tongue, distracting myself by calculating how many degrees I turned Boojum's head. 720. No. 180 more, so 900 degrees in total. Killing Boojum myself made me appear selfless, wanting to spare my friend the guilt of murdering someone. Though pretty cool and badass, it might be more fitting for a brooding character. Usually, the guy with a dark past and gray morals would do this in movies. Anyway, I could play this up for a trauma shtick in the future. Dean exhaled long. At least it was quick. It had to be done, I grimly said, nudging Boojum's headless body with my foot. He was now with Snark if there was really an afterlife, which there very well might be. Considering the existence of Adumbri. That left Imani. And maybe Jubjub, if Imani had told her about me. If they got the word to the mysterious professor that I wasn't a normal human, my problem would get disastrously big. That was for future Erend to deal with after kicking so much ass, I didn't want to puzzle about other stuff. I have plenty on my plate right now. We had no choice, I said. We couldn't let him tell others I'm Red Hood. I don't think he'll keep quiet no matter what story we tell him. Yeah, but I was going to. It had to be me, it was for my protection. I'm not going to pass others my responsibility. That line sounded pretty cool. I hope you're not going to do the same to me. Vanessa walked up to us. She kicked Boojum's head to the side as she passed it. Despite trying to appear nonchalant, her wavering voice and pale lips, colored red by the blazing fire around us, betrayed her fear. There was hesitation in her gait, like she'd instantly bolt if we lunged at her. She massaged her right arm, she hadn't reattached the metal bands covering it. What was the purpose of those? A fashion thing? Whoops, Vanessa saw me betraying someone. Did it bring up bad memories? If anything, I gave her a quick death. Almost death. Though I'd imagine regenerating her toasted body wasn't a pleasant experience. That was on her for not actually dying back then. They'll become my enemies if they know I'm an adversary, I explained. He didn't realize it yet, but he'll eventually figure out I'm not one of them. I thought you were saving. Never mind. Vanessa gave Dean a sidelong glance. My best friend was looking at my other friend. I did consider Vanessa a friend with her right brow raised as high as it could go. We've fought together, Vanessa went on, but we haven't had a proper introduction. Flames crept over the rest of the piles of crap stacked toward the back of the cavern. We weren't in danger, but it was getting hotter, and the smoke tickled my nose. This might not be the best place for a serious chat, but I wanted this over with before moving on. Dean, this is Vanessa. Vanessa Minos, I said. Maybe Dean knew her through rich social circles. She's related to the mayor of La Esperanza. Like a niece or something, right? The former mayor, Vanessa clarified. I'm his niece, yeah. You're from our city, not Vegas? Dean asked. Are you with the 2MS? Not the Tea Party. 2EMS. What's that? Mark and Big Marcy, I explained. 2Ms. You're right, Dean. Vanessa's an artificial adversary and a customer of the 2MS. I met her back at the Eve Club the night we infiltrated the place. Not exactly. We met after the explosion, so Eve and the arena beneath it were already destroyed. I had returned to my human body you get what I mean, and was running lost in the tunnels when I ran into her group. I gave Dean a vaguely truthful summary of how I pretended to be one of the 2MS clients and went with Vanessa's group. Then we got hunted by big drones. We were separated while running from the skitters, I said, meeting Vanessa's eye. I don't know what happened to Vanessa after that. I thought she died. Vanessa blinked fast. Her left cheek twitched. I was ready to interrupt her if she spoke wrong. I was able to escape, Vanessa said in a raspy voice. Her eyes were watery from the smoke or remembering her deceased friends. Only me. All the others got killed by the bid. Vanessa was quick on the uptake that Dean had no idea of our barbecue session. But she wouldn't be able to guess why I wanted to keep it a secret. It wasn't that I didn't want to look like a complete psycho in the habit of executing people and roasting their corpses. That was only a minor part of it. This was mainly for Vanessa's safety. If Dean knew I tried to kill Vanessa, Dean would assume to the absolute max that Vanessa was back for revenge. Hell, I was also thinking of that. Dean could get pretty unpredictable when it came to protecting me, both a good and bad thing. I brought Vanessa's story to the present. Vanessa and I met each other again when I got teleported here, I said. She helped me escape my prison. She's on our side. I turned to Vanessa. Right? I don't really care about this or that side, Vanessa said. I promise to protect you. I did that when we escaped Eve, and I do it now. That's all. Damn it. A simple yes would have been enough. Vanessa didn't want Dean to know about recruiting me to help Big Marcy, and I agree with that, but this protecting me talk would trigger Dean's pesky side. You two haven't met each other, Dean pointed at me, then at Vanessa, since escaping from Eve? No, it was true, not counting Vanessa's peeping familiars. And Vanessa got these eyeballs that can freely move around? I inclined my head at Vanessa. She nodded. I call them my familiars. As a mini demonstration, a couple of the eyeballs lodging in her left arm revealed themselves. Dean flinched at the sight. The lids shut, and Vanessa's skin smoothened. When Pino and I passed through the portal door, Dean said, "An eyeball led us on a safe path through this base. That should be before Vanessa met you, Erend. You got teleported later." Dean put her hands on her waist and snapped at Vanessa. "How did you know to help us? How did you know we were with Erend? I was observing you through. How long have you been surveilling us? Do you know where Erend's condo is in La Esperanza? Did you lead?" "I didn't." Vanessa protested. "I can never do that to Erend. I learned about Stella and her group attacking Erend's condo long after it happened." "Dean, calm down," I said. Funny that she had the same thoughts as I did about Vanessa. I could definitely count on Dean if I'd ever need to lessen my circle of friends. If Vanessa's our enemy, she wouldn't have helped us during the fight. "I also convinced March Hare to use the Oren field device," Vanessa said. "That box with a brain on it. It was an advantage that no one could use any ability because you, Erend, are physically the strongest among all of us. March Hare's power could have collapsed this cavern, but he's too proud to turn off the Oren field until he was already losing." "Nice one, Vanessa." That was a big plus point for her. "Because of it," I said, "I managed to kill the man who makes those weird ceramic puppets. The man who baited me to go through the Vanessa. Have you seen my mom? Your mother?" I held Vanessa's upper arms and pulled her to the side so I'd be facing her, and my back was toward Dean. I widened my eyes into saucers as I glared up at Vanessa. "Have you seen my mom?" I repeated, stressing each word. "The man with the puppets told me she's here. Do you know what she looks like? How long have your eyeballs been following us?" "I don't know what she looks like," Vanessa said. "I spotted you with my eye familiars only after the tea party attacked the tech fair. Were you with your mom at that time?" Another good answer. But before I could continue my skit, Dean cut in. Erend's mother was on stage. Dean came closer. I kept my face turned away from her. Of course, Dean would be interested in this. She promised to save Mom and made zero progress on that front. She's not hard to miss in a crowd. She's very tall, has white hair, August eyes. I've seen her, Vanessa said. She described Mom's clothes. That's her. Dean exclaimed. Where is she? Is she okay? Yes. I've saved her. Where is she? Dean asked again. Vanessa looked at me. I squeezed her arms, hoping the mouth familiars wouldn't wake up and bite me. Vanessa explained, I freed a few prisoners and teleported them somewhere near the Greaves Convention Center in Vegas. Actually, I led them with my eye familiars, the same as I did with you, to the correct doors. Don't worry. They're in a different building and a bit far from the attack site. They should be safe, including Aaron's mom. I didn't know she was. Teleport with the portal door. Dean interjected. How? I thought that was the power of that jerk with the fake people. Why would he help you? You mean Finley? The door is not his power. It's someone else's. I bribed that guy to help me save some people. It's really lucky that Mom's one of them, I said. Thank you for saving her, Vanessa. If only I saved more, Vanessa said. She shot me a puzzled look, probably wondering what was with all the secrecy and fake stories. By the way, did you see where Pino went? I asked, giving Vanessa the same piercing stare. She was with Dean when. I trailed my words, looking expectantly at Dean. She obliged, describing Pino's appearance. The wrinkles on Vanessa's forehead disappeared, and her eyes brightened. I could almost hear the ding of the light bulb in her head. The metal woman? Vanessa said, her eyes flicking between Dean and me. So, her name is Pino? I don't know where she is. When I went to free you, I lost track of her during the commotion. Fortunately, Vanessa understood that I was pretending not to know about Mom because I was hiding from Dean that I was Pino. Pino can take care of herself, Dean said. Her body's almost indestructible. We should worry about ourselves and how to get out of here. Glad that Dean had gotten off Vanessa's back, even if begrudgingly. Vanessa, where is here, exactly? I asked, releasing my grip on her arm. The red marks of my grip on her skin were fading. Are we still in the US? We're in an abandoned mine in the Nevada desert, she answered. Dean and I breathed sighs of relief. I snapped my fingers. I knew it. Hell is under Nevada. That got a chuckle out of my friends. It does look like hell, Dean said, looking around. The flames grew taller, scorching the cavern walls, but weren't spreading toward us because there was nothing flammable nearby. It reminded me of a brick oven, with a fire on one side. The heat was becoming unbearable. My sweat seeped through what was left of my shirt and made my skin stick to my tarp cape. Let's go, I said, jogging to the elevator while adjusting my covering into a wraparound shawl. Does the elevator work? Black Spade fried the system during our escape, said Vanessa, punching the keypad beside the door. It didn't do anything. But we can climb up here. Your not-so-friend got the right idea. Our only obstacle is the platform of this elevator, which acts like the door of the shaft exit. We can bust through it. I'm going to climb up with you, Vanessa indirectly answered what Dean implied. The Tea Party guys were supposed to use the platform to carry Erin's body if she had transformed into a giant werewolf. Or parts of her. You were going to cut Erin up. March Hare's plan, not mine, Vanessa testily told Dean. He expected to win when we came here. This is also supposed to be an alternative escape route in case we get stranded. Erin destroyed the doors you could use, Dean noted. I assume it has to be like a normal door for the teleportation to work. That's right. Furthermore, we weren't sure if the old man who controls the doors was truly on our side. Vanessa glanced at me before staring up at the metal structure. But that's a topic for when we get out. Are there guards up there? I wondered. Just normal guys with guns, said Vanessa. The three of us can easily handle them. We'll steal a vehicle and maybe a map to figure out where we are in the expansive Nevadan wilderness. She did a little bow at Dean, gesturing at the elevator shaft. You go first. I'm just waiting for my eye familiars to return to me. I spread a few of them around the base. If you don't trust me, we can wait for them, and I'll climb. Vanessa winced. A red line appeared on her left arm. It thickened, and blood dripped down. Someone killed my familiars, she hissed, looking around. Dean and I faced out, peering into the roaring fire. Why was Dean's guardian angel not warning us? Was Vanessa mistaken? Maybe her eyeball pet got squished by a random falling rock. It turned out we might have an enemy. A large form, about the size of a car, walked through the flames. It was hard to make out what it was, but it had legs. And was that a head? With horns, it looked like. An amplified woman's voice blared, Erin Hartwell, you cheeky brat. You always gave your mother a headache when you were a kid. Do you remember me, your Auntie Dora? Auntie Dora? I might have heard that name before but couldn't place it. I began summoning my Blanchette mask, ready for a challenge. Our enemy, I assumed she was one, knew that we, mainly me, trashed the Tea Party boss and his minions, but still came here. Either she was pretty strong or stupidly confident. The large beast with a woman's voice shrugged off the curtain of fire and smoke. It revealed its monstrous self, serenely plodding on 6 feet toward us. Feet or hands? Its muscular legs, disproportionately lengthy compared to its body as if on stilts, ended in human hands. Its massive bulk was covered in a rugged wrinkly hide. A cross between a rhinoceros and a giraffe came to mind. Antlers of rebar bent like abstract art adorned its large oblong head. No visible eyes, but several holes lined its nose ridge. Dean stood to my right, fists raised, looking scary with the dried blood on her face looking like war paint. Still no word from her guardian angel. Vanessa was on my left. The slits all over her right arm quivered, with some opening to reveal rows of fangs. I grimaced. The gibbering mouth familiars were uncomfortably close. 3 not-so-human girls versus whatever this was. Can we win? The bizarre monster, I guess all of us were monsters, opened its mouth. Its wide jaws didn't move, neither did it have lips, but the same voice spoke. "How ya doin', Len-Len's daughter? Fierce performance you got here." Len-Len? Daughter? Was this thing talking about Mom? Her nickname was Lendy, not Len-Len, but it sounded close. And also familiar. The monster opened its mouth wider and wider, literally grinning from ear to ear. It didn't stop there. The split continued down its neck, through its flanks. Its front part opened like a hatch, and out came a woman, pulling herself out of wire and organic veins before dropping to the ground. She was the one talking, not the monster behind her. "We meet at last," she said. Or, again. "Do you remember your Aunt Dora?" This Aunt Dora weirdo was almost as tall as Mom and thin as me. She had wrinkled clothes that looked like she randomly grabbed the first thing in a super-packed suitcase. Her hair was tied with a polka-dotted ribbon, taming the hair close to her head before it blossomed into a frizzy mess. "Should I know you?" I inched my Blanchette mask closer to my face. "Why, yes," she said, adjusting her round glasses. "Really sad you forgot about me." The glasses were probably just for show because she had glowing bionic eyes. The eyes were like my mom's, though wearing fake glasses shtick was like me. Funny how that worked. I hadn't seen anyone who wore eyeglasses in front of their august eyes. What was the point? More importantly, have I met this woman before? She seemed too memorable to forget. "Euphonia!" Vanessa exclaimed. "Is what I go by now," Euphonia said. "Before, I was called Eudora." "That's Aunt Dora to you, errand brat." "Why does she keep calling me a brat? Did she really know me when I was a child?" "Mom always told me I was the perfect daughter, so I had no idea what she was on about." "Is she with the tea party?" I asked Vanessa. "She's with the old man who uses the teleporting doors," she replied. "Both of them aren't really with us." "Then who are they with?" I remembered Vanessa's explanation about Legba, the small old man with a peculiar handbell. A mercenary of sorts hired by the tea party. In turn, Vanessa bribed him to help us bring Mom to safety and open a way for my real body to come to this base. Could we pay my Aunt Dora to help us? Dean could foot the bill. I don't know," Vanessa said, eyes flicking to Euphonia. "How can you not know?" Dean snapped. "She might be an enemy." "I'm not an enemy if you gals behave yourselves," said Euphonia. For mechanical tentacles ending in clamps emerged from her back. 3 of us tensed, wary of attacks. Hero wannabe Dean held her hand to shield me as if that'd help. Dean wasn't telling us to run, so everything should be fine. For now. Would there be a future problem if we let this random woman live, given that she knew who I was? "Don't be so uptight, Errand," Euphonia said. "Can't you recognize your ol' aunt? I told you to call me Aunt Dora when you were a kid, but you never did. Creepy kid you were. It was as if you didn't care about anything. Can you call me Aunt Dora now?" She spread her hands wide as if beckoning me to hug her. Her mechanical arms mirrored her movement. "Are you like a long-lost sister of my mother or something?" I wondered. I never really paid attention at family reunions, so I'm sorry if I can't remember you, Auntie. I sarcastically stressed the last word. Euphonia laughed. Her tentacles wiggled like eels. "We're not related by blood. I'm your old dear's co-worker from way back in Ireland. Remember your mother used to work there?" You were a wee girl when you visited the office then, so you must have forgotten about me. If Euphonia knew Mom, was she the reason Mom got kidnapped? Couldn't be. Mom had 3 people connected to Corbrings and Adumbrey. Talk about coincidence. Such a small world, Euphonia continued, putting my thoughts into words. How fecking messed up Lenlen's life is. Her husband faked his death to prance away with the Corbrings. Then her daughter is an Adumbrey. Poor Lenlen can't catch a break. This woman might be telling the truth that she knows me. My dad's death could be easily found on the internet. But the stuff about him possibly joining the hive was a rumor only among friends and family, so Euphonia might be one. But, so what if she used to work with Mom? That didn't answer if she was an enemy or friend. What do you want? Demanded Dean. That should have been my first question. Where do I begin? Euphonia inhaled deeply before bursting, errand brat. You destroyed this place that I was infiltrating. You killed the people with the information I wanted. She pointed at Rabbit Ear's corpse with a tentacle. You burned, figuratively and literally, the leads of my investigation. I now understand why you gave Lenlen such a headache when you were a kid. She used to tell me stories about you. I'd be knackered if I was your mother. What? I was going to ask about the stories my mom told Euphonia, but then there was something more important to ask. What were you investigating? Being nosy is rude. Euphonia wagged a finger in sync with her metal arms. But it's for the greater good of the Corbrings, specifically their big gaffer, the head honcho guy. If that translates to the benefit of humanity, then I think so. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm on the side of good here. Anyway, I haven't even reached the worst part of the right bags you made. Do you know what it is? You ate Crocker. Who's that? She's a Tea Party Adumbrey, Vanessa explained. You fought her. She has tattoos that come to life into fire monsters. I remember, I think. I tilted my head, struggling to recall what I did while in my giant werewolf form. I ate a lot of people, that was for sure. Sorry for killing your, target Aunt Dora. I was supposed to cut portions of Crocker's skin with tattoos, Euphonia said, her bionic eyes glowing fierce red, and make them into wallets. I can't do that with the skank digested in your stomach. You've lost me my rightful souvenirs. Wallets out of human leather. Was she some kind of psychopath? Maybe she was spouting shit to psych me out. I wondered why there were so many crazies in Nevada. Must be the desert. Can't you let me go since we're related? I said. Sort of. You sound like good friends with Mom. I was going to kill you. Euphonia dropped her hands, her shoulders slumped, and her octopus arms lowered to the ground. But there's no point fighting another Adumbrey, a naturally occurring one, same as me, unlike the off-brand ones like Vanessa here. No offense, Vanessa. I like you out of all off-brands I've met so far. Egotistical slugs who don't know their place. None taken, Vanessa said, nervously chuckling. She slowly breathed. Her mouth familiars have calmed down. She probably didn't want them threateningly baring their teeth. Did you say, same as me, referring to Errand? Dean asked. Her angry expression turned into a puzzled one. You're an Adumbrey too. Good job picking that up, Dean. My caring levels were dropping so fast that I missed it. I'm as natural as they come, Euphonia said. She clicked her clamps as if testing tongs while barbecuing. Minus the machine parts, of course. Does Mom know about you? I asked. Does she know you became an Adumbrey? That you're working with, the criminal underworld? Criminal underworld? Euphonia rolled her glowing eyes. When I became an Adumbrey several years back, I faked my death to go into hiding. Took a page from your father. Lenlen didn't even know I'm alive until about a couple of hours ago. I met her before this whole place went crazy. A fateful reunion between friends. You mean you saw her here? While she was held captive? That must be why Legba helped us, Vanessa blurted the next line of my thought. Euphonia shook her head. Wasn't me. No clue why Legba Grouch agreed to get Lendina out of here. I don't know what he was thinking, no one does. Me? I just chatted with her for old time's sake. You were just going to let my mom die? I evenly said. Calm down, errand brat. Euphonia raised her hands and tentacles. If you put it that way, I sound like a massive tool. What did you expect me to do? Compromise my mission? Good for humanity, remember? It doesn't matter now, though, with you fecking up everything. I thought you and Mom were friends. From like a decade back. But why? Legba saved her, so no harm done, right? Euphonia waved her hand as if erasing a chalkboard. Enough of me, I'm not a narcissist. I'll be a caring aunt and ask about how you cuttin' so far. When did you turn into an Adumbry? Just this January. On the 20th, to be exact. Your second birthday. We'll celebrate that next year if you manage to hang on till then. Hang on. You're quite new, which is why you still possess your mental faculties. You're very powerful, though young. Fair play. But eventually, you'll succumb. Cherish your time with Len. Do mother-daughter stuff. I'm a mother, but a different kind, so I can't give suggestions. Once you feel like you're going to lose control, put yourself down somewhere no one can find your body. Leave a note for your mother. Not a suicide note. Tell her you got pregnant and are running away with a guy to start a family in India. Something that won't make your mom think you became an Adumbry. Something that'd give her peace of mind. That doesn't sound like that'd give Mom peace of mind. Errand will never lose herself. Dean declared. I'll support her in keeping her mind strong against the Adumbry. Time will tell if that's merely wishful thinking, Euphonia said. But now, it's the time to get you girls out of here so I can do my thing. Several mounds of shadows shifted in the fire. Stepping out, it was more of the rhino giraffes. They walked past us. One went for rabbit ears, scooping up his corpse with its detachable head and wrapping it with wires. The other creatures climbed up the elevator shaft, stopping to collect white beanpole before ascending to get the other bodies. Using her tentacles, Euphonia reached toward the rhino giraffe that stayed behind her. She rummaged through the disgusting insides of her pet, digging through machines and fleshy organs. Her mechanical arms pulled out a thin object, a rectangular board that unfolded into a wider panel. Where's that knob? Euphonia grumbled. There. I should organize my things. A tentacle fished out a shiny object. She laid the panel on the floor and fixed the silver object on it. A door? Dean said. It was a portable door, nifty for the powers of Legba. The doors with doorknobs around us have either been destroyed during the fight or eaten by flames. You're helping us get out of here? I asked. Unless you girls plan to leg it through a couple of kilometers of rock and wander the desert for a few days, Euphonia said. This'll lead you straight to your mother. I did tell her that you're alive. I was lying then, but it turned out I wasn't. She laughed as the familiar ringing filled the air. The door on the floor changed into a different one. Euphonia, Aunt Dora, wait a bit, I said. Didn't you say you've been in Adumbry for several years? How did you last this long? You seem to be in control of yourself. Euphonia might know about Penemu, Headley Cow, and the Adumbry who could control themselves. I didn't ask it outright because it'd be bad if she actually were part of their group. Penemu tried to kill me before we parted ways. That's because I am in control of myself, she replied. As to how I can't help you there. I just did it. Is it possible for me too? Are there other Adumbry who have done it? Possible. Yes. But very unlikely. Some Adumbrey has managed to do it, a minuscule percentage. I got no tips to give you. Either you do it or not. I'll check back after a few months to see how you're doing. A nice visit from your Aunt Dora. Euphonia grabbed the doorknob and opened the door on the floor. The other side was mostly dark and oriented as if it was a door in an upright position. A gust swept over us, cooling my sweat and icky feeling. The blaze beat back the cold air. Tell Len Len that I kept my word that you're not dead, Euphonia said. Cancel that. It'll be hard to explain to her that we met. Think of a grand story of how you got out of the Greaves building. The elope with a guy to India story suggestion is pretty good. I'll think of an explanation, I said. Thanks for the help, Aunt Dora. And I remember now. You gave me a Greaves stationery as a souvenir. That's right. Euphonia clapped her hands, and her august claws clamped their fingers. Helping you escape is a better gift, isn't it? Now, go. You and your off-brand friends have fun. Aunt Dora still has work to keep her head on her shoulders. I turned to Dean, then at Vanessa. I held the tarp covering me as I ran to the opening on the floor and jumped into it. Imani Nanda checked her phone again, anxious to get a message from anyone. Jubilee, who went by Jub during missions, had sternly reminded her to turn off her phone because the police would be tracking signals. But Imani couldn't help herself. She had been waiting for Jubilee's return for more than half an hour and was desperate to know anything. The screen's light blue due to her wallpaper of a serene beach in Goa washed her face in the darkness of the room. She blinked her eyes to adjust to the brightness. Notifications. Imani's heart jumped. She hissed a curse when they turned out to be government advisories. They told her to stay indoors and report anything suspicious. Just those messages over and over again. A couple of texts listed streets for commuters to avoid because they were blocked. She recognized those were in the area of the Greaves Convention Center. The whole city now knew something wrong, if they didn't already. Imani grasped her phone tight and held it to her chest. Everything went dim, with only the occasional red and blue light peeking through the small gaps between the boards on the windows, disappearing as sirens faded. She was in a room of a condemned motel scheduled for demolition, 3 streets away from the convention center. This was their team's agreed meeting point if the mission went awry and they had to scatter to escape. Only Imani was at the safe house, and she didn't feel safe at all. Many black goo monsters had slinked out of the convention center and were being hunted by the police and the BID. Imani knew she couldn't stay here long. A few minutes ago, there were gunfire and a loud boom nearby, but she also didn't want to leave yet. What if Marco and Ronan came here needing help? Imani stopped referring to them by their codenames of Boojum and Snark in her head, superstitiously hoping that'd cancel the mission and teleport them next to her. Part of her wanted to cry. Another part wanted to run out into the streets to look for them. There was also a bubbling urge to scream. She didn't know what to say. She just wanted to scream and scream until all her friends were safe by her side. Marco, I'll suffer through your preachy lectures, she mumbled at the nothingness in front of her, feeling warm tears stream down her cheeks. Ronan, I'll listen to your stupid jokes all day. Just come back. The last she saw Marco and Ronan was when their team split up. Imani went with Dean's group, while the 2 guys left to protect the crowd that fled when Pino's controlled beast fought the black goo monsters. Imani eventually reunited with Jubilee and met other survivors, but none of them knew what had happened to Marco and Ronan or the people they were with. That time, Imani couldn't even think of Marco and Ronan. It was only because of Erend waking up that they survived. Imani didn't see how it went down, but Erend used her core-granted ability to wipe out the incoming black goo monsters. And what fearsome power Erend had, though Imani couldn't tell exactly what it was. Tornado blades, maybe. Some sort of blast force. Confetti of inhuman fleshy parts splashed with black slime decorated the path to their hiding spot. Imani vomited when she first saw the gruesome sight and again while tiptoeing across the disgusting corridor. It was only after Jubilee directed them to a sewer opening that her shadow crows found when Imani realized they were leaving behind Marco and Ronan. But there was no going back at that point. The building and its surrounding areas were a battlefield between monsters and humans. What could I have done there? Imani thumped her chin with the top of her phone as if to rattle her brain. She didn't have her combat augs or any of the chemicals the professor provided them that boosted physical performance. An average human, that was all she was. Less than average. Even a gun couldn't have helped her. She could only join Jubilee in escorting the few survivors they gathered. As they exited the stinky tunnels to a familiar street above, Jubilee separated Imani from the rest of the group with a wall of shadows. The swirling shades whispered to Imani what she should do next: head to their designated safe house, while Jubilee led the people they saved to the police. Imani complied without question and bolted through the path between parting shadows. She didn't know how Jubilee would explain her sudden absence to the others, but Imani couldn't spare the energy to puzzle about that, relieved and thankful she got out alive. Guilt gnawed at that feeling now that she sat alone on the dirty floor. Jubilee will find Marco and Ronan. The shadows told her so. Imani kept chanting the same sentence to drive away the helplessness hugging her. The image of the four of them together was in her mind. Jubilee promised. Marco and Ronan seemed to be the last people she'd think of dying. The ever-serious Marco was a pillar of strength and self-assurance. Imani always turned to him whenever she wavered during missions. He had a heroic aura about him even if Jubilee was their leader. If this were a story, he'd be the main character. Main characters don't die. Sometimes, she was scared of Marco because he absorbed corpses to heal himself. Not just dead enemies but dead anybody. It didn't sit right with Imani, making her slightly cautious around Marco. However, she still trusted him the most. Ronan was the opposite, joking around even in the direst of situations, the class clown. Imani felt closest to him because they were the humans of their group, squishy meat bags that couldn't regenerate, as Ronan always said, and had august limbs. She knew that Ronan shared the same fears as her, but he only ever expressed his worries through jokes. Jubilee will find Marco and Ronan, Imani repeated out loud. It wasn't working, she couldn't psych herself up. Her heart thumped faster and faster, and she didn't know why. Did something wrong happen to them? Her mother's voice rang in her ear in uncertain times, remember to pray. Nothing to lose if she tried. Imani bowed her head. Her long straight hair fell over her face like a black waterfall. She didn't bother sweeping it aside, preferring to hide behind the curtain. Closing her eyes, she prayed in a trembling whisper, Mother Core, I know I don't talk to you much these days, but this is for Marco and Ronan, not me. Please help them. Please keep them safe. They're my friends. No, this isn't about me. They're brave guys, far braver than me. I know they'll save more people than I ever could. I swear, I'll do anything to have them back. She stopped. Distant sirens and the noisy rotors of a helicopter passing overhead were all she could hear. The cell phone in her hand was still. Continuing her prayer, Imani mumbled, I'll merge with an artificial core. I swear on that, dear Mother Core. I'll be brave like Marco and Dean, and also Erend. I won't be afraid of your power. I won't be afraid of her voice caught in her throat. She continued in her head of leaving my humanity. The phone vibrated. She hurriedly checked if it was Marco or Ronan texting her. Mom's still awake? Imani blurted. She shrunk upon seeing the name on the message, the sudden excitement gone. It was too much to hope that the Mother Core would instantly answer her prayer or even care to listen to her. Mom was worried because of the flood of government advisories. All that Mom knew was that Imani was at a co-worker's house for a small get-together. Before attending the tech fair, Jubilee reprised her usual role and picked Imani from her house to sell the story. Imani didn't have the energy to reply. She wanted to curl under the table and wait until Jubilee returned with Marco and Ronan. And she did just that, letting herself slump to the floor. What would Mom say if I'm no longer human? Imani asked the rough floorboards. She was tempted to take back her promise to the mother core. Remember Amber Dean? The Leska heir had more to lose than her but still took on an artificial core. Imani knew she had the strength to do it, buried somewhere in her. Where did all that talk of courage go? Was she going to give up at their lowest point? She pictured the face of her mother in the near darkness. That image shifted to the parents of Marco and Ronan. Marco's mother was nice. She gave Imani a box of cookies the one time she visited their house. Ronan's father, someone who tinkered with Augs, helped her install some upgrades to her right hand. What will I tell them if their sons are dead? She whispered. Then she answered herself. I don't know. She closed her eyes. Sleep could take away the utter defeat choking her. Their group had many wins. Some losses too. The biggest success was leading the bid to one of the Tea Party's secret laboratories, saving the small team of agents from getting killed, and trapping Mad Hatter until the bid reinforcements arrived. This was their biggest loss. Instead of saving Dean and Erend, they saved them. Imani didn't know if Dean and Erend made it out alive. She should care about them too, but her heart only wanted Marco and Ronan back. Maybe when she wakes up, they'll be guns. Imani's eyes opened wide as she promptly sat up, pointing the finger of her august arm at nothing. She was still alone in the room, and it was still dark. Checking her phone, she had been asleep for around 20 minutes. There was another text from Mom and a bunch of advisories, no word from Jubilee, Marco, or Ronan. The messages weren't what woke her up. She was sure she heard shooting. A wail of sirens made her flinch. She scampered to the corner of the room as red and blue lights passed. The police weren't coming for her. She was lucky that nothing had happened to her while she was asleep. I shouldn't have slept, Imani scolded herself, hitting her temple with her phone. 5 minutes. She would wait 5 more minutes. If there was no more noise, she'd sneak out and go home. Imani curled up near the walls, humming church hymns her mom would sing while doing chores. Usually, they annoyed her, but now, they comforted her. A creak. Imani shone her phone's light on her surroundings. The door was closed, the room empty other than rotting furniture. Was that a rat? The old building settling? Another creak made Imani start. The door rattled. Dark liquid seeped through its hinges. Imani chuckled in relief. It wasn't the black goo monsters. Jubilee Jubjub, you scared me. Sasori, replied layered wispy voices. The liquid pooled in front of the door as a woman wearing all black. Tove, is everything okay here? Jubilee said in her normal voice. I'm fine. But there was gunfire a few minutes ago. I was going to. That was me. I distracted the police up the street for our escape. Let's get out of here. I'll cover. What about Marco and Ronan? Imani dusted herself as she stood up. I already tried looking for them, Jubilee said. Came up empty. Imani pushed back the tears. Damn hard sneaking, Jubilee continued, with many scanner drones flying around. I eavesdropped on bid agents arguing with some suits from Greaves. Apparently, they couldn't find a bunch of people. Imani furrowed her brows. While breaking the hostages free with Pino's help, they came upon a couple of rooms that mysteriously had missing occupants despite traces inside and being locked from the outside. It could be an Adumbri's power at play. They couldn't have disappeared into thin air, Jubilee said. I hope they weren't eaten or. They're still alive. Imani snapped. You're right. Sorry. Marco and Ronan are strong and have good heads on them. They'll pull through. They'll pull through, Imani firmly repeated. If lucky, they might have teamed up with Amber and escaped elsewhere. I don't know what Amber's power is, but it'll probably save them from the complete crap that happened. Imani didn't want to theorize about the survival rates of her friends. To distract herself, she asked, "What about the people with you? Are they safe?" "Yeah, I led them right to some police officers," Jubilee said. She walked to the window, peered through the gaps, and observed the outside. "They should be fine now. Don't worry about them." "Did they ask about where I went?" "I should have stuck with. It's better you're not with them so the police won't investigate you. I just told them you must have gotten lost in the sewers, and I'd go find you." "They're fine with that explanation?" Imani asked. Most, if not all, of the survivors didn't trust Jubilee because of her powers. They thought she was an adversary despite helping them. When they saw the carnage that Aaron caused, they thought Jubilee did it and became even more afraid. They only stuck with Jubilee because she presented the only way to escape, and they feared she'd kill them if they disobeyed. "Yeah. Course they are." Jubilee shrugged, still facing the window. "Why wouldn't they? I thought some of them would insist on finding me." Imani had Kira in mind. She was the only one who opposed sending Aaron on her own. People are people. They're more than ecstatic they survived hell against all odds. They're not going back to risk their lives. "I guess so. Don't think of them anymore. They'll assume you're dead and forget about you too. They don't know your name and will forget your appearance soon enough. We're all clean on that part." Jubilee was right. As things stood, it was better if she kept her distance. But Imani still wanted to check on the people they saved. It'd be motivating to see proof they did something right tonight. No life was too little. Each person that didn't die could do good in the future. It might not be wrong to befriend some of them, Kira, for example. If talking about courage and standing for what was right, Kira got mounds of those traits that Imani wished she even had half of. A thought occurred to Imani. "Isn't it better if she began to ask Jubilee. She paused. Was she wrong that it would have been better if she didn't leave the group? That wasn't a stupid idea, was it? Imani already pretended she didn't know Jubilee. There'd be no problems if she was examined by medics or passed through bid scanners. She was human. Since she was outwardly innocent as could be, she could have spied on the survivors and police for developments and looked out for clues regarding her friends. The numerous tests she'd undergo would be a minor inconvenience. "What is it?" Jubilee turned around, a severe brow raised over her round eyes. "No, nothing." Imani decided she'd check the survivors without telling Jubilee. She didn't want to argue with her. It'd be hard to find their names because the government would keep it a secret. Others might persecute the survivors for surviving, but she was set on trying. "I'll get you home, then I have to report to the professor about the mess here," Jubilee said. The pool of darkness underneath her rushed to the door, enveloping its knob to open it. Maybe Marco and Ronan would have surfaced by then, not to mention Amber. "We were supposed to protect the La Esperanza girls but lost Aaron. Aaron should be safe because Imani didn't continue to reveal Aaron's secrets. The professor must have kept them from Jubilee for a reason like Dean's power. She'd need to ask permission from Aaron. Because we didn't find her body." "Do you mean the couple trying to look for Aaron among the monster corpses? Tesh and Kira, right? Who knows, maybe Aaron went out after whatever railroaded those monsters had passed. I think I saw what did that, a huge beast with black and red hair. It saved me from Finley. If I got lucky, then maybe Aaron did too." "Let's hope so," Imani said. "Please, Mother Core. Make Marco and Ronan lucky too." Vanessa Minos was the last to go through the door on the floor. She wavered momentarily, thinking of asking Euphonia how to pay for helping them. But Euphonia was busy directing her monstrous creations. More emerged from the flames and dug out of the ground. Vanessa promptly jumped into the portal, anxious it'd close. She didn't want to get stuck with Euphonia and her pets. She went down through the open door and shot out sideways, gravity abruptly changing directions. She fell on her left side, disoriented, landing on a polished concrete floor. A shadow fell over her. It was Dean, an unsmiling face offering a hand. Vanessa cautiously accepted it and mumbled, "Thanks." The three found themselves in the back area of a locker room with yellowing tube lights on the ceiling. Vanessa wrinkled her nose from the musty dustiness. She recognized her surroundings, her eye familiars had been here before. The ringing bell stopped, and the door they came through swung shut. It was an off-white PVC door with patches of old stains along its bottom. Aaron grabbed its doorknob. "What are you doing?" Dean asked, pulling the tarp sheet draped on Aaron's shoulder. "Just checking." Aaron turned the handle. "Why? Is there danger?" Dean shook her head. Vanessa blinked at their exchange. Why did Aaron ask Dean that? A possible clue to Dean's power? Despite spying on them for some time, Vanessa had no idea what it was. It must be something not apparent, like seeing through doors and walls. A downside of the eye familiars was that they could share with Vanessa only what they saw. They didn't have ears and couldn't eavesdrop on Aaron and Dean discussing the latter's powers. Aaron pulled the door open. It was a janitor's closet. Inside were a yellow mop bucket, brushes, and empty containers with peeling labels of cleaning products. "We really got out," Aaron said. She popped the door off its hinges with one firm yank and threw it aside. "There. So that weird lady can't follow us if she changes her mind about letting us go." "Oh. Where's your mom?" Dean exclaimed. "And those that escaped with her?" She rushed to check the other side of the locker shelves. Rounding the row of rusty metal on Vanessa's left, Dean came out of the far end, near the room's exit door. "No one else is here. Are we in the right place?" "Maybe we're in China," Aaron dryly said. "This is where your mother got teleported," Vanessa said. "If Legba didn't mess up," she added in her head. "The other people, too supposedly." Aaron stared at her. Vanessa gave a subtle head tilt in answer. She didn't know why she pretended to have saved others besides Aaron's mom. Who was that story for? Aaron knew she was lying. Was she unconsciously trying to make a good impression on Dean? Maybe she had wanted to be seen as trustworthy, but now there was a slight problem to fix with her story. "That was a while back," Vanessa continued. I mean, they must have left to explore the building. Let's find them." Dean jogged out the door. "Dean, wait for us," Aaron called. She pulled Vanessa to the exit, whispering, "A small reminder that Dean shouldn't know I'm also Pinot." "Already got that," Vanessa replied, wondering why Aaron kept Dean in the dark. They seemed like close friends, even living together. It turned out they were not as close as Vanessa had assumed. Was Aaron hiding some of her powers in case she'd fight Dean? It wouldn't be surprising if Aaron betrayed another ally. Must be the Adumbri inside her. Aaron did it to Vanessa and her friends. She decapitated that guy fighting with them earlier. Vanessa guessed he was one of those government test subjects helping Aaron. Dean could be next on the chopping board if she was no longer useful or turned into a threat. Or what about her own mother? Dean appeared to care more about finding Aaron's mom than Aaron herself. Was Aaron preparing to dispose of her mother too? It could also be me, Vanessa mused. Again, though, knowing stuff about Aaron that Dean didn't was some comfort. She had time to build up their relationship. After eating Rob with her mouth familiars and reviving her body, she was a charred corpse. At that point it dawned on Vanessa that she truly was a monster. Then she corrected herself, I already knew that long ago. She became a monster after undergoing the procedures at Red Island. She was a monster for ingesting chemicals made from human brains. She was also a monster for doing nothing while innocent people got killed for sport in front of her. But everything sunk in only after meeting and surviving Aaron. In her second life, Vanessa accepted that she didn't have a place with humans anymore. She should be with her own kind. With other monsters. With Erend. Eyes piercing the darkness, Vanessa led the way, Erend's hand on her shoulder. Aunt Lendy. Dean called, her voice echoing in the eerie quiet of the dilapidated building. Aunt Lendy, where are you? Dean didn't get far because the lights outside the locker room were busted. Vanessa spotted her in the next hallway, hands stretched out, trying to feel what was in front of her. It was evident that Dean couldn't see in the dark, but she uncannily avoided piles of trash littering the floor. Another hint of her power? Was it echolocation? Dean, quiet down, Erend hissed when they caught up to her. There might be enemies around. Vanessa, what's this place again? A rundown building about a 5-minute drive from the Greaves Convention Center, Vanessa explained. The Tea Party bought it as a storage and parking space near their target because large pieces of equipment couldn't fit through Legba's teleporting doors. Most of the Tea Party's forces gathered here before going to the tech fair with their trucks. But I don't think there's anyone left here now. Dean said, so, it should be fine to call out for. Don't, Erend interjected. Mom shouldn't know that we know she's here. Our story will be that we stumbled through portal doors while running away from monsters and miraculously ended up in the same place as her. We don't know anything else. Got it? What about? Oh, and we found Vanessa along the way, Erend said, predicting Dean's next question. Vanessa's an innocent girl that also got swept up in the Tea Party attack. We helped each other survive or something like that. You don't need to introduce me to your mom, blurted Vanessa. I'm not even supposed to be here. No. Erend firmly said, squeezing Vanessa's shoulder. You're our friend, and I'll introduce you to Mom as such. We'll tell her you snuck out of La Esperanza to party in Vegas or something and got caught in this mess. It might be less complicated if we don't. No. Here's the plan. We'll tell her who you are, niece of the former mayor and all that, so you don't want your name plastered on the newspapers as related to an Adumbrey incident. Mom will keep quiet, I'm sure of it. I want the two of you to meet. You did save her, after all, though. Let's keep that part a secret. Vanessa's right, Erend, Dean evenly said. She can go away once we find your mom. Dean didn't know Vanessa could see her frowning face as if the lights were on. It was immature, but Vanessa couldn't help herself getting ticked off. Changing her mind, Vanessa said, I think it'll be fine if we go with Erend's plan. Yeah, we'll all meet Mom, Erend cheerily said. Plus, we can use Vanessa as an excuse not to go to the police. Mom will insist on going to the authorities, but we can delay that, say that we'll help Vanessa hide first or whatever until we can contact Myra for help. To Vanessa, Erend explained, Myra's our friend from La Esperanza who knows I'm an Adumbrey. Dean curtly said. You shouldn't say your you-know-what out loud, Erend. You don't know who might be listening here in the dark. Oops, you're right, said Erend. So, how will we find your mom if we can't call for her? Though she was talking to Erend, Dean had a death glare as she faced Vanessa's direction. Just shout generic stuff, Erend said. Then she yelled, hello. Anyone here? Fine, let's do that, Dean relented with a sigh. I was thinking of splitting up to cover more ground, but it's super dark, and we don't have any light. Where's your phone? Erend asked. Dean dug into her pockets. I don't know. I must have dropped it while fighting. Story of my life, Erend muttered. It didn't have much battery left anyway, right? Let's just continue walking in the dark. Erend tapped Vanessa's left arm. Let me handle looking for your mother, Vanessa said, taking the cue. She prayed Dean would forget about the imaginary other saved captives. My eye familiars can see in the dark just fine. Vanessa omitted that she could as well, with her own eyes. Don't move while they come out, or you might step on them. There were several popping sounds, like a stuck plunger getting pulled, as the eye familiars left their sockets. Erin took a few steps back as Vanessa leaned down, extending her left arm so the eye familiars could gently drop to the ground. Scratching followed as they crawled in different directions. Erin had a mildly amused look, while Dean had contemptuous disgust on her face. Vanessa rolled her yes. Was Dean grossed out by the eye familiars, or hate her in general? If the latter, Vanessa couldn't figure out why. One would think they'd be on good terms since they were both non-humans and were mutual friends of Erin. It couldn't be that Vanessa was an Adumbree because Erin was one too. I have to prove I'm trustworthy, Vanessa thought as she held Erin's arm. Erin jolted but didn't pull back. You two stick with me, Vanessa said, while my eye familiars searched the building. She rapidly blinked, slipping into the vision of a different familiar each time she opened her eyes. Dean, do you want to hold? No, Dean replied shortly. I'll follow behind you too. Just tell me if I have to watch out for something. Vanessa chewed her tongue. It was best not to be pushy with Dean for now. Vanessa switched back to Erin. We'll find your mother in no time. I hope Mom stayed inside the building, Erin said. But knowing Mom, she'd try to look for me everywhere. Let's hurry up and get out of this place, Dean said from behind. Then we can split up. Vanessa can stay here and continue to search the building. Why do you dislike me so much? Vanessa thought at Dean, gritting her teeth. Then she relaxed, conscious that Erin could feel her tensing up and heard her teeth. What will you do after this, Vanessa? Erin asked in an attempt to change the topic. I don't know what you were doing with the tea party, but I bet you weren't supposed to fight them. Dean quipped, she was helping them with those slugs turning people. The tea party is pretty much done for, Erin loudly continued, talking over Dean. Like, what will you tell your, boss? Do you call the two Ms. Boss? I didn't know about those slugs, Vanessa snapped over her shoulder, mustering an affronted tone so her lie wouldn't be blatant. I'm just one of the clients of Mark and Big Marcy, so I don't call them boss. They asked for those willing to help the tea party in this joint project because they lacked people. I joined to know more about what's going on. Just curiosity? Dean asked, her voice rising at the end, indicating absolute disbelief. And also to make friends, Vanessa hesitantly shot back, as if partly ashamed. I mean, to get acquainted with others like me. Another lie. Vanessa was, in fact, spying for Big Marcy on what the tea party was up to. But her story made her sound more sympathetic. Let Dean interpret that as she liked. Erin, too. Vanessa had already told a few lies, what wrong was more? Really though, it wasn't a complete lie. I want to be with others like me. What will I do when I return to La Esperanza? Vanessa continued. I don't know. I have to make up a story for Mark and Big Marcy, but I don't want to think about it now. Big Marcy would have her back, Vanessa was sure of it. He'd be delighted that she managed to get Finley killed. Let him handle Mark and the others who'd be suspicious. Do you have to return? Erin said, gazing up at Vanessa even though she couldn't see. What if you hide? Run somewhere super far away. You can save money and... Won't work, Vanessa cut in. She had thought of that many times the nights after she became an Adumbree, and her body turned healthy. Not human, but no longer dying. I have to return to them. Are you afraid of what they'll do if you leave? We can help protect you, Dean said with a much gentler voice. What Ash? It's no, not that, Vanessa stammered in surprise at Dean's offer. Yes, they'll hunt me down if I run away. But that's the least of my worries. If I don't regularly return to Red Island to have what I call maintenance, I'd lose myself to the Adumbree in me. Is that the same thing Euphonia told Erin? Dean excitedly asked. She mentioned that she could control her Adumbree. No, it isn't, said Vanessa. Euphonia is a true adumbrary-like errand. She can control herself without the treatment for the clients of Mark. That shouldn't be possible. She's a special case from the rumors I've heard, but I don't know anything beyond that. But can those treatments, the ones for artificially made adumbrary like you, work on errand? What are they anyway? There are pills. I don't know what they do or what they're made of. The people at Red Island keep the formula a secret because that's their business. We take the pills as prescribed. Then there are psychological conditioning sessions each month. That reminds me, I'm due next week. Will those treatments work on errand? I honestly can't say. If we can get to Red Island, maybe we can find something for errand. That'll be hard because of the memory erasing thing I mentioned, Vanessa replied. But in her mind, she mentally noted that she'd ask Big Marcy about it. And the Red Island's location is a complete secret, even to most higher-ups. So, our other option for errand is Euphonia, Dean said, and other adumbrary like her. If we can find their secret, we can keep Errand from becoming a monster. But Errand is already a monster, Vanessa said. Just like me. There's nothing wrong. Errand is not a monster. Dean burst out. The floor shook, and the walls rattled. Vanessa saw from through the eye familiar trailing them that Dean stomped her foot. Vanessa bristled at the possible fight. Adrenaline coursed through her body as she balled her fists. She wanted to turn around, but Errand held her still with surprising strength. I don't know about you, Dean continued. You may consider yourself a monster, but don't lump in Errand with you. You chose what you became. Errand didn't. Vanessa wanted to point out to Dean that adumbrary, like Errand, also chose their fates. Are you forgetting? She started to say, but Errand elbowed her. Shut up, you two, Errand said. She didn't snap or shout. She just talked straight, without raising her voice, but it was enough to make Vanessa frightened. Dean also faltered. But Dean said after composing herself. Shut up. Vanessa saw Dean lower her hands. And Vanessa, said Errand. What? Your mouth familiars are noisy. Vanessa jerked back and then checked her right arm. Some mouths opened, whispering words she didn't want to listen to. Her agitation affected them. She tried to calm herself so that they could go back to sleep. She'd need to have new metal bands made to secure them. Let's focus on finding Mom, Errand said. Vanessa, anything? Sorry, Vanessa said. I wasn't paying attention when footprints. Footprints? I sent some familiars upstairs. Nothing on the upper floors, so the Tea Party members don't go up. But the dust on the floor was recently disturbed. Is it Mom? Possibly. I'm sure there are no Tea Party members here. It might also be the other hostages, Dean said. They might know where your mom went. Okay, we're going up, decided Errand. Don't forget our story. Also, yell out generic stuff so Mom won't get surprised. And, what is it? Asked Dean. I just realized a problem. It'll be hard to explain why I look like this. My clothes are half burnt, but I don't have any injuries. If we can find something for me to wear first. I know where the rooms used by the Tea Party are, Vanessa said. Maybe they had left behind a shirt, a vest, anything. We'll tell Mom I was pretending to be them. Nah, that's a bad story. I'm too short to be anyway, let's find me a shirt first. And we better do it fast, Vanessa said, barely able to control her voice. She hugged Aaron's shoulders. Because I found your mother. Euphonia touched her face. Her cheeks had risen, and her lips had curved up. She didn't realize she was smiling while reviewing old videos and pictures in her files. Perhaps she did miss the good old days when she was human. Or not so good. Being human sucked more than a black hole. So brittle, so fleeting. If she hadn't become an adumbrary, she might have turned herself into a cyborg. She had begun her research into digitizing human brains at that time. But there were moments Euphonia had fun back then. Mostly when Len was around, they were different departments, so that wasn't often. Euphonia conceded that some of their coworkers were also okay. A couple of the lab technicians were amiable enough she killed them before destroying Carlo plant so they wouldn't suffer. There were engineers in her team that she tolerated they were near the explosion, so a mercifully quick death for them. And her immediate superior, whom she turned into one of her first biomechanical creations as a sign of gratitude, was moderately agreeable. Into the trash, you go. Euphonia deleted each file from her Greaves days after viewing them. She should have done this when she faked her death. The remaining few were pictures of her holding a mug of Irish coffee. She was sure what it was because of the disgust on her face. She never liked alcohol in her coffee. How did Len convince her to drink it? That was such a long time ago that Euphonia couldn't recall. She paused at the last photo. She and Len clinked their mugs together. Len's hair was mostly gray, while her irises were solid black, her real ones. Euphonia made a face as she zoomed in on herself. One of her eyes was already bionic. They both looked like total Muppets, grinning broadly at the camera. And delete. There was no point retaining these. If she could excise part of her brain to forget her human past, she'd do it. Such a gammy waste of existence that was. Euphonia opened her eyes after the jaunt down memory lane and a small cleanup to pass the time. She adjusted her glasses as she scanned the warehouse to check if her creations were done with their work. The pod legs had detached their heads and left them on the ground before trooping back to the trucks, folding themselves inside for transport. The pods containing bodies were on the right half of the floor, and those with machines, samples, and other items that might be of interest were on the left. This was Euphonia's best effort to salvage the mission. She had something. But she wasn't sure if this was enough for 13. She groaned, giving Legba a sidelong glance. Sure, look, what can I do? Nothing, that's what. The hooded ornament stayed perched on top of a crate, silent and still. The only hint he was alive was his cloak occasionally stirring from his breath. Euphonia ranted, that brat errand had to destroy the good thing I had going on. She should be thankful Len's her mother, or I would have turned her into a wallet. That might do Len a favor, saving costs on raising her daughter. The tuition at Alois University should be an off-the-rails capitalism nightmare. Having a wallet for a daughter is much better. Expectedly, Legba didn't say anything. Euphonia hadn't heard a word from him since they first met, though Satori swore Legba could speak or do anything else. Euphonia usually had to guess his response from how he shook his bell. So far, she'd been right, she supposed. Legba had been reasonably cooperative with her plans. But she couldn't understand why Legba helped Len escape. Euphonia doubted Legba did it as a favor for her. She wasn't particularly grateful or relieved that her old friend she did consider Len as one was still alive. She was ready to have Len slug to cleanly break from the past and prevent any dramatic mishaps involving Len's daughter in the future. It could be that Legba had taken a liking to Vanessa. That Euphonia could understand. Vanessa was the most tolerable of all the off-brands. Betraying those peasants with overblown heads pushed her to fondness territory in Euphonia's eyes. Through hijacking cameras inside the Tea Party's base, Euphonia had a good grasp of what happened. Vanessa drove Len to Legba's door and to safety using her fascinating mouth pets. And then, Vanessa somehow convinced Legba to bring Erend into the Tea Party's base to wreak havoc. Fair play, that one. She could prove to be a resource someday. On the other hand, Len just had the most extraordinary luck to get out alive when so many others didn't. Maybe lucky wasn't the right word to describe her life. Euphonia noted that Len seemed to have an uncanny sense of being right, that something was fecking wrong. Len believed her husband's death was a load of lies, and it turned out she was correct. Len thought there was something wrong with her precious daughter. Voila, errand brat eventually became an Adumbry. Legba shook his bell. A mellow ring echoed. Yes, I'm also surprised she could return to her original body. She might be able to control herself, very possible. 2 rings. No, I'm not going to help her. Euphonia snorted. I'm no one's babysitter. I did it on my own, and so should she. And I'm having a bang-on time detached from my past. Having that brat around would remind me of her mother. Though Euphonia just said that, a minuscule part of her was touched. Len installed the bionic eyes she had made. Legba shook his bell. But it didn't ring. I'm not going to check on her again. Euphonia waved her hand. That was just a stall the ball a second. Am I correctly interpreting what you're saying, or am I having a delusional conversation with myself here? Legba returned his bell inside his sleeves and lowered his head, hiding his face in the shadows of his hood. Euphonia shrugged. For all I know, you could have been asking me for a midnight snack. I don't have anything to eat here. I don't even know what you eat. There was no more response from Legba. Euphonia took a quick gander at the rows of pods before turning around and pacing to the door. I'm fecking pissed off that slag, Crocker, didn't die by my hands, she said. But I had wanted to destroy their base, and that did happen, just not in my planned timeframe. I'll take that as a win. Let's see if 13 will think the same. A light flashed in her augmented reality vision. Speaking of that overseer Ars Legba, he's coming. Legba's bell rang, its familiar notes merging into one peaceful stream. The door in front of Euphonia changed. She clenched her teeth. There was always the chance that the Corbrings would decide this was the last day of their arrangement. But she didn't have any other option. If she refused to work with them, she'd be hunted down, an unsavory proposition. There's a risk to everything in life, she told herself as the doorknob turned. It wasn't her fault that things ended up the way they did. What was she supposed to do? Fight Errand in her giant wolf form? I'd waste so many of my beloved creations, Euphonia muttered. And she didn't want to kill Len's daughter. The door swung open. An 8-foot-tall humanoid ducked through the too short opening. Euphonia intentionally chose the small door with this in mind. If this was to be her last day on this pile of crap of a planet, she'd slightly inconvenience the Corbring that'd kill her. Though more than a couple of feet taller than Euphonia, 13's torso was about the same size as hers. But he had a much longer neck and limbs, looking like the disproportional figures in fashion sketches. Interlocking silver metal and yellowish bone plates protected most of his slender body in an abstract exoskeleton, including a smooth, holeless mask on his face. Uncovered flesh showed rough skin in a pastel red color. Euphonia was surprised that 13 didn't come alone. A young girl with Japanese features, probably in her teens, followed him out the door. There was nothing remarkable about her. She looked outwardly human as could be, and she wore plain clothes, like any girl one would find in the mall, not a hive uniform. Curiosity gnawed Euphonia's mind. Against her better judgment, very, very good judgment, as proven numerous times, Euphonia was tempted to scan the girl to find out if she was indeed human. But before she could do it, 13 blocked her view as if reading her mind. How ya getting on, Thur? Euphonia stopped, noticing the number on 13's mask. Her heart stopped. 8. She blinked. You scumbag. That's fecking duct tape. 13's muffled laughter reverberated as Legba stopped ringing his bell. You should have seen the look on your face, 13 said with an affable voice fit for a talk show host, contrasting heavily with his alien appearance. He peeled away the black duct tape that formed an 8 on his mask to reveal the actual number 12. Can I get a different Corbring to liaise with? Euphonia folded her arms across her chest. Someone not as childish, please. I think that was a good joke. The Corbring twisted his body to look behind him, revealing his spine that had grown several times its original size, protruding out his back. He asked the girl, "What do you think, Pando?" The teenage girl replied, "A good payoff for your efforts." Pando. That meant, I spread, if Euphonia's Latin wasn't rusty. She had enough of Latin and scientific names to last a lifetime. Was that a clue to the girl's identity? But Euphonia had another question before that. "What's the deal with your number?" Euphonia asked, tapping her face and then pointing at 13. "Did someone kill you?" He tilted his head. "You know how my powers work." "Nothing that couldn't be found in the local library," Euphonia said, downplaying her extensive research on 13. She spouted common knowledge about him, even if it was inaccurate. "You get stronger each time you croak, and that on your face is a countdown. The lower the number, the stronger you get. And what'll happen when this number," he pointed to his mask, "reaches 0? No one knows because it has never happened." 13 snapped his fingers. "You got that right. It never happened because this number can never become 0. But it did reach 1 before. The time you betrayed the hive," Euphonia snidely thought. According to the information she had delved from top-secret government records, 13 rebelled against the hive after the Adumbri War. 13 was at his strongest, while the hive was at its weakest, with many Corbrings dead. Peak 13 with the number 1 on his mask was reportedly stronger than several high overseers combined. Eudora couldn't fathom how the hive brought him to heel. It might have something to do with this girl. "I'd hate to be the guy who brought your counter down to 12, Euphonia said. "So, do I call you 12 now?" "Still 13. 13's fine. 13 minus 1, if you want to be accurate. You should get a less confusing name." Euphonia stepped to the side to get a better view of the girl behind 13. "Hello there. Pando, right? I'm Euphonia." "Her real name's Eudora," 13 said. "But it'll be a feat having that changed in her birth certificate with her death certificate already filed." "I hardly had a say in my name when I was born," Euphonia replied with a humph. "My ma'am picked it. I have my choice now." Euphonia, the mid-19th century talking machine. Pando looked straight into Euphonia's eyes. "An interesting choice. The unappreciated automaton that led to its impoverished creator taking his own life." "And I am reborn anew," Euphonia said, mildly surprised that Pando knew about the source of her name. "Creator and creation become one. Did you take revenge on those people who didn't appreciate you?" "You're making me sound like a stock-standard mad scientist character," Euphonia nonchalantly said while assessing the situation. Why was Pando here? The way this girl spoke was unsettling. It was as if she had a mind beyond her years. "If you really want to know, then yes, they're dead. All dead. Same as old me." Pando walked out from behind 13. The towering prankster held out his arm to stop her. She gently tapped his bony plate, signing to lower it. 13 complied, standing aside. "I'm right." Euphonia was elated. Pando could somehow control 13, maybe she held something over his head. If Euphonia could find out what it was, she might be able to guarantee her safety. "Tell me, Euphonia," Pando said, tilting her head. "Before your old self died, did you leave behind a seed for, perhaps, a tree of progress in the future?" "A seed? What are you talking about?" Pando didn't have a threatening air, so Euphonia decided to risk a cursory scan. A second later, she had all the information to conclude that Pando was fully human. Of course, physical readings were just the tip of the iceberg. There were plenty of explanations for Pando. A Corbring could be controlling this girl from afar. "Euphonia, the talking machine," Pando said. "Ignored though she might have been, did inspire the father of the telephone's inventor. Is there someone you've inspired with your previous life?" "Len's wearing my bionic eyes," Euphonia sarcastically thought. What bloody nonsense could that lead to? She shook her head. If Pando's power was related to the brain, Euphonia better take care not to get sucked in mind games. Ignoring Pando, Euphonia nodded at 13. Mind introducing me to this lass here? Is it bring your kid to work day? A simple answer is that Pando is my boss. Ultimately, your boss when it comes to this, 13 said, waving to the rest of the warehouse. I'm just the middle guy. Subcontractor, you know. The big gaffer, eh? Euphonia wondered if 13 was playing another rotten prank. Gaffer means boss, right? 13 asked. More than that, Pando is the foremost line of defense of the humans against the Adumbri. The core brain controlling you must be powerful. Euphonia stepped forward, staring at Pando. Assuming what 13 said was true, then Pando was stronger than him. Was this supposed to intimidate her for failing her mission? Combat-wise? 13 said. No. I am the strongest. Humility is a virtue, said Pando. Not for me. Don't let Nanny hear you say that. Nanny? Euphonia was familiar with the name. Nanny was the high overseer taking care of Corbrings in deep sleep. Well, Pando, sir, said Euphonia. Thanks a million for not having me killed. That was swell of you. But I've got bad news. We're aware of what happened, Pando said. Hands clasped behind her back over her long straight hair that went past her waist, she strolled past Euphonia and went to the pods. She gave the statue-like Legba a nod. Euphonia raised a brow at 13, who only gestured at Pando. This is not my night, Euphonia mentally fumed. First, Len showed up. Next, Len's daughter put a period to Euphonia's mission. Now, a new Corbring was bringing fresh headaches. Almost everyone in the convention center died, Euphonia said, following Pando. You should have known that by now, I assume. And I did tell 13 that's going to happen. But that's not the bad news I'm referring to. The Tea Party is mostly eliminated. Pando stood beside one pod. Were you going to tell us that leads have fizzled out? She tapped the pod with her shoe. Are these from the Tea Party base? Yes, Euphonia replied. To both questions. But stall the ball and rewind. How did you know? She looked back at 13. You got eyes on me. Other agents in the Tea Party's ranks? Vanessa came to Euphonia's mind, but she didn't blurt out her name in case she was wrong. I thought we had a deal here. This isn't going to work if you don't trust me. Is the next thing you'll say that you can't trust an Adumbri? 13's face was completely covered, but Euphonia suspected he was smiling behind his mask. He said, I don't trust you. Not at all. But Pando does. We trust you, Pando said. Subcontractor guy here just said he doesn't, Euphonia pointed out. 13 raised his hand. I wasn't included in the "we" there. What? Euphonia snapped her head back to Pando. We are many, Pando said, putting her hand on her chest. We can see many things. Several of us attended the tech fair. Some died, the Tea Party took others. Are you mind controlling many people? I am many people. And I am more every passing day. Mind control, puppeteer, possess, whatever term you want to use, Euphonia said, her mind racing, connecting the dots. I'm not into semantics. What I'm asking is, are you taking over the human race? We are not taking over anyone. Pando shook her head. We are born as is, only taking time to awaken to who we are. Sure, if you want to couch it that way. 13 mentioned you're the main line of defense against the Adumbri. My next question is, can this body of yours use whatever term you like become an Adumbri? No, Pando said as she strolled down the row of pods. What will happen when a cocoon absorbs you? It will be destroyed. I see, so that's what the supplier is trying to prevent. I subtly eyed the police officers in the room. 4. None of them looked my way. 3 more were in the adjacent room, and 2 should be by the lobby. How many were in the rest of the building? How many were outside? The answer, not enough. I could kill all of them. They couldn't do anything to stop me. No one here could. They didn't even know what I was capable of. Blanchette wasn't needed, transforming would only delay me. My eyes flicked to the clock. My plan was excellent and all, except for 2 problems. 1, Mom was somewhere in this building. She'd see me running amok, squeezing people's heads, my new hobby. And 2, if I killed the cops, no one would process my certificates that I had cleared the tests. Fujuge caked, I muttered under my breath. Mom was tested first. Then she pranced around the police station, being Ms. Congeniality. She pulled me aside to introduce me to cops working in the Comexo unit of the station. Some were former Greaves employees. I lost my place in the line right after Dean. Because of the boring chat session, a buttload of people arrived for the test, high schoolers who had a field trip at the tech fair yesterday morning, lengthening the line. Understandably but annoyingly, their school admin wanted them tested even if they missed the parasite party in the evening. It was mayhem a couple of hours ago, mostly the parents of the kids drumming up a fuss. I half hoped the police would put all of them in jail. They shouldn't be allowed to raise children with that immaturity. I had to wait until all of the kids and parents, many of the latter, insisted to join to get tested before my turn. I should have pretended to be their schoolmate and cut the line. I tooted at the missed opportunity. Rechecking the clock, I noted that 2.5 hours had passed since I drank the suppressor Myra provided. We didn't have to call her for help. She was already on the way to Las Vegas when she saw shit going down at the tech fair on the news and arrived 2 hours past midnight. Her instincts prodded her that I had something to do with it. Myra was wrong. I didn't have a connection with the Tea Party's plans. But for future reference, it should be assumed that if there were an Adumber-related mess, I'd be inadvertently around, as if fate pushed me there. Maybe spooky errand. Who knows? Excuse me, officer, I timidly said, raising my voice a pitch higher. I slumped my shoulders down and hunched a bit to appear even smaller. Are my test results out? This was the 3rd time I had approached the walrus. Not yet, miss, said the muscular but plump officer behind the desk. Can you check? I asked. They should finish assessing my tests first because I was actually there when the attack happened. Well, not exactly. Our official story was that when the Tea Party goons started piling into the Greaves Convention Center, the Mother Corps, by her infinite grace, guided us to hide and escape. We weren't there when the parasite crap started. Our story was a proper mess, and Mom didn't stick to the nitty-gritty details we agreed on. She sucked at lying, which made both of us more believable. I gambled that the Tea Party had destroyed or taken over the security cameras, so nothing would contradict my tale. But even if the police eventually unearthed evidence exposing our lie, there were other buildings with cams nearby. I'd be on the run soon, anyway. Too many jackasses after me. Not run away. Run to them. I just wanted Mom to get her clearance and fly back to her job in Europe as soon as possible while I cleaned up this mess like a good daughter, unlike what Auntie Dora said. It wasn't even my mess, I just slipped on it and dived headfirst splat on the dirty floor. When Mom would return someday, I'd have already reclaimed my everyday life. If that was possible. Or I could be dead. The walrus wiggled his wry whiskers while looking at the small TV on the wall. Just sit and wait, he mumbled behind his mustache. It'll be out before you know it. He didn't bother to check the pile of papers on his desk. Of course, it'll be out before I know, I mentally grumbled as I returned to my chair. That's why I was asking. I examined my right hand. A fingerless glove made of stretchy cotton wrapped it, Dean's gift. It was supposed to be a stylish way to cover my hand. Not sure about fashion, but it was comfy as a soft sweater. Materialize in my world, anyway. There were multiple worlds from how spooky Aaron spoke. I dug the nail of my index finger into my thumb. Painful. A small reddish indent remained on my skin. I could also feel how weak I was. The suppressor was still in effect. Puny, frail, squishy human. Must be why I was cranky and antsy. Annoying to be weak. I didn't want to say it out loud, not that this was a good place for it, but I had less and less intention to become a normal human again as time passed. If that's even possible. Likelier that I was pissed because I'd have to abandon my normal life soon. After going through all that to save Mom and preserve my surface-level way of living, I'd end up overturning it myself. But I didn't have a choice. This had to end on my own terms. The TV caught my eye. A break from the non-stop news about the tech fair. The reporter narrated that the missing college students from a few days ago had been confirmed to be the bodies found in the burned shack along the Mojave Highway. She continued that the bid was on the case because it was suspected that an adversary was involved, given the mangled state of the bodies. Another cop stood beside Walrus' desk, watching the TV. Shrugging, she said, positively not a mountain lion goin' round burning bodies. The TV screen flashed a picture of action hero with his movie star's square jaw and brooding eyes. The next was Skull Tattoo Bro. I couldn't forget his ugly mug, even though his parents provided a decent pic of him wearing a dress shirt to hide his tattoo. The following images must be the other dead frat guys. After that fun night or day, I was ashamed to admit I couldn't remember the rest of them. Poor lads, Walrus said. Eloise students, all bright futures gone. I'd love my boys to get into such a prestigious university. Gonna set them for life. Poor lads. I raised a brow. They surrendered their bright futures when they bothered me. Rule number 4 no longer protected them. I did egg them on a bit to bother us more, but that was ultimately on them. How do you reckon they got lured to that ancient gas stop? The female cop wondered. They went in there for a dare, my guess, someone said. Some stupid game, for sure. And then found an actual monster. Right out of a friggin' horror movie, a passing cop gruffly said. Precisely what I was going for, I cheerily piped in my head. Was that pride I felt? My handiwork was on the news. Partially Dean's too. Ugh. I didn't want to share the glory with her. The tech fair was a bigger thing, but that wasn't mine. As for wrecking the Tea Party base, while that was awesome, it'd probably be only known by government authorities. If they'd even find it. I intently listened to the reporter describing the torn and burned bodies. Violence and fear sell. From the blood in different locations, it was apparent the victims were killed separately, she said. Then their corpses were brought to the old store and set on fire with their car. The news switched to interviews of supposedly nearby residents. I didn't know where the hell they lived in the empty desert, speculating there was some demonic ritual going on with the burning. Then there was another shot of a priest praying outside police lines with several onlookers behind him. Man, not a good way to die, said another person waiting for his test 3 seats away from me. I supposed he was talking to me, so I timidly nodded. If I recall correctly, the frat boys were attending the tech fair. Technically, they were going to most likely die there too. I just gave them a better death. Arguably. Wow, I'm a good person. I caught my grinning face reflecting off a computer screen. I lowered my head, willing my cheeks to go down. I kept smiling as the cops chatted about how awful the crime was, one of the worst adversary-related incidents in recent years, they said. And it would have been top news if it wasn't for the tech fair. Bet the adversary that did this was at the tech fair, the female cop said. Stopped for a chow on the way. Had half a mind to burn evidence. Evidence. My blood was there. Dean's too. Not human blood. The investigators would confirm something inhuman did it but couldn't trace it back to us. What about cloth scraps? Fingerprints? Did the customers at the diner remember us? The police might track us for questioning in the days to come. My history of getting involved in way too much adversary stuff was getting suspicious. It'd be hard to do what I planned if government authorities were coming for me. Should I accept Vanessa's invitation? I scrolled through the contacts on my phone to the number she gave me. I snorted at the name Roasted. I should change that. She gave me a means of contacting her before we parted ways last night, saying I should meet with her boss at work soon. Mom was listening, so Vanessa couldn't say she meant Big Marcy. Why did Vanessa lie about that? Weird. On the topic of weirdness, Vanessa said that another person wanted to see me, Ramon. I played along that I knew the name, only remembering this morning while brushing my teeth that Ramon was the pizza delivery guy who had a crush on me. He's alive. A mini surprise I didn't care for. Last I'd seen him, he was part monster. Or full monster. Can there even be a half monster? Once part of a human turned into anyway, what was he doing with the 2MS? And why would he want to see me? Shouldn't he hide because of what he had become? Maybe Vanessa told him I was an adversary, and he thought he had a chance. Heh. I'd have forgotten about Ramon if not for Vanessa bringing him up. Who else did I forget from the condo? If I forgot, how could I remember? Duh. Given that Ramon was still in the land of the living, Kelsey might be as well. Suppose Myra's suspicion was correct that the supplier kidnapped her sister. In that case, the best Myra could hope for was that the supplier recruited Kelsey as an adversary soldier, sort of like Ramon with the 2MS. My finger hovered over the message button next to Vanessa's phone number. I was interested in what Big Marcy had to say about the supplier and his connection to Dario. Now, I had to know because I was coming for them. Big Marcy might be able to protect me from the police and bid as I'd lose the professor's sinister hand wiping away evidence. So many enemies. Allies were also enemies. I would take them all out until no one bothered me anymore. Aunt Dora, I muttered, noticing a cop with bionic eyes. Would she help me? She mentioned working for Corbrings, probably in return for her life. Can I get a deal like that from Corbrings? Didn't sound too bad. The door of the adjacent office opened, interrupting my thoughts. A police officer holding a bunch of papers stepped out. Some of those had to be my certificates. She didn't immediately go to the walrus, stopping to watch the TV. I couldn't blame her. I was also interested in what was being reported. Workers from the Corbring hive had arrived in the city. Humans employed by the hive, not Corbrings themselves. The mayor spoke on a pulpit about not letting Corbrings into the city because that was akin to a foreign military force coming in. He strongly supported the president and shared his views on rejecting hive interference. But in this instance, the mayor allowed hive researchers to lend their expertise in the investigations. Then the news switched to a bunch of reporters crowding around a tall man in a crisp white uniform with blue and black borders. He had a smooth silver helmet fully covering his head. His identity was kept a secret for both the safety of the hive and the relatives and friends he left. I should know. Even his voice was altered as he answered questions from the reporters. In the background was a Corbring ship, its mouth open. Do ships have mouths? I didn't know what to call that door thingy under the ship's belly that doubled as a ramp. The ship was hard to make out because the hive spokesperson and shrubbery of microphones partially covered its view. People in similar uniforms and helmets descended the ship, accompanied by sleek drones carrying heavy equipment. Is that? My eyes widened. The outline and gait of the man third in line were familiar. I shot up, almost toppling my chair. Dad? Ms. Hartwell? The cop with the papers jolted in surprise at my sudden movement. She handed me an envelope. These are yours. Apologies for the delay. Our labs are swamped. She grinned. Also, the director's chatting with your mother, so she didn't immediately sign these. Yeah, Mom, I checked the TV. Ads were playing. That was probably just my imagination. If you can follow me here, Miss Hartwell, said the cop. We'll need your signature on a few things. So, we're all agreed that we're going to try recruiting Imani to our side. I said after Myra had started the car. I sat by the passenger seat while Dean was behind me. Mom was going to visit Aunt Michaela, who taught at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Not an actual aunt, but a family friend who used to work with Mom. I had many aunts and uncles in the city, and Mom wanted to visit as many of them as possible before leaving. She knew I hated social nonsense and didn't persuade me to accompany her. Worth a try, Myra said. But it's really up to you guys, 'cause I haven't met her. I can't judge her character just from your story. We'll ask Imani, Dean said, and see her reaction. What about this Jubjub person? She's the Dario of their group, I said. Totally an enemy. I wanted to suggest that if we could kill Jubjub, we should do it before she'd regroup with the professor. Maybe we don't need to do this, Dean said. Maybe Dario still hadn't found out that you're an Adumbri. That you're Red Hood. The professor having us tailed is proof. I locked eyes with Dean in the rearview mirror. I was wrong to think that Jubjub's group was tasked with protecting you. Maybe that's what the professor told them, but by tailing you, they're tailing me. Or maybe it was to protect you from going rogue because of me. Whatever the truth was, it's awfully sketchy how frantically they reacted with us leaving La Esperanza. Dario's acting suspicious as hell when I asked him for suppressors, Myra said. He did give it to me. Then I exchanged it with Everett and Rio's suppressors to be safe. Now that Jubjub's team is down for the count, the professor would send others, I said. To do what, I don't know. Follow us? Get Dean away from me? Kill me? We should take the initiative and act first. What if Dean leaned forward in between the two front seats? What if Imani rejects us? We can't have her telling Jubjub on us. I turned left to look at Dean, staring into her eyes to push her to answer it herself. After a few seconds of awkward silence, Dean said, We'll kill her. There's the Dean I know and love. Scratch that last part. I nodded, echoing her. We'll kill her. And that's a -1 for their team, too. Earlier this morning, the lobby receptionist at the condo handed me an envelope as we were about to leave for the police station. Inside were 2 pieces of paper. The first was a flyer for a cruise ship, and the second was a note from Imani. She wrote that she wanted to talk face-to-face about something. Did it cross my mind that this could be a trap? Yeah. But I had Dean around. Traps were so passé nowadays that bad guys should come up with something new. And what was up with the cruise ship promotion? Did the receptionist slip the flyer into Imani's envelope? Rude much. I doubted Imani was inviting me for a cruise to forget the traumatic for her incident we survived. Myra parked her car across the street from the meeting place. Imani had set a small decrepit park in a much less crowded section of Vegas, long left behind by the city's progress. Might be too late to be cautious, but whatever. I stopped in front of the vine-covered arches by the park's entrance. Myra and Deep were behind me. With my back turned to them, I pretended to be the main character in an action movie's finale and said, before going any further, I want to make sure everyone is on board. We'll risk the normalcy of lives what little is left and might never return to it. Actually, we're risking our lives. Period. Errand, Dean started to say. I pressed on, I'm going to be honest here. If I could back out and hide and just forget about everything, I would. But that's not possible. I'm in the center of this. A lot of people are after me or will be after me. And I'm going after them first. I slowly turned around, picturing myself sitting on a swivel chair. What about you? Are you really sure you want to help me? I'm going to get my sister back no matter what it takes. Myra shook a determined fist. Her hair, dyed metallic blue, shimmered under the sun. The way to do that is by joining forces with you guys. Dean said, I'm also with you, Erend. But you don't need to be, I replied. You don't have a personal stake in this. We'd had this conversation a bajillion times. But like a pretty girl constantly saying they were ugly to farm compliments, I wanted to hear someone was ready to sacrifice their life for me. I'm willing to put my life on the line for my best friend, she replied. Thank you very much, Dean, I said. That's my fix for the day. Thanks for the help too, Myra, though you also have your own quest. It means a lot that you delivered the suppressors. Anyway, let's go in and see what we'll find. We found exactly what we saw outside, a park masquerading as ancient ruins, partly reclaimed by nature. No Imani or anyone else around. It would have been quite a scenic place were it not for the rampant vandalism. Nothing, Dean? I asked while trying to read graffiti scrawled on the butt of a headless cherub atop a fountain that had seen better days. I tried to distract myself from picking at my new glove or flexing my right palm with the crystalline growths on it the suppressor had just worn off. Gabe is silent, she replied. It's not a trap. For now, Myra grimly added. Gabe will say something at the first sign of trouble, Dean said. We'll find out soon, I said. Let's do some, I don't know, sightseeing while waiting for Imani. The ugly side of Vegas. Myra followed my gaze. She kicked an empty beer bottle, one of the many littering the ground, into the dried-up pond surrounding the fountain. Very different from what tourists expect when they come here. After what happened to us, I said, tilting my head to Dean, I can say that Vegas can only be described as a horrible tourist destination. Erend, can I read the note again? Dean asked, not joining my joke as required of a best friend. She was in all serious mode as if this was an important matter. I handed the paper slip to her. I don't doubt you, she clarified. But I want to double-check if we're at the right place. Yeah, why's your girl, Imani, not here yet? Myra looked around. I'm gonna stand close to Dean in case this turns out to be an ambush. This should be our meeting spot, I said, glancing at the note after Dean returned it. The writing was in insanely neat block letters that one could mistake as typewritten. This is the angel missing its head. Unless this is supposed to be a code or something. Any guesses what she wants? Myra asked. We're survivors of such a harrowing experience, Dean said. It's a normal human reaction for Imani to seek fellow survivors. That sounded like nonsense. I racked my brain about what Imani's game could be. Her note didn't say much other than she feared something terrible had happened that could encompass a lot of stuff and she wasn't sure who to trust. Imani decided that it was us. I reread the end of the note, focusing on the last word. Trust. At first, I found it funny that Imani came to me looking for someone trustworthy. But after a bit more thought, I realized that Imani unknowingly stumbled on the correct choice. What did the professor and Jubjub plan for Imani's future? The other test subjects too? Something no good, for sure. But if Imani went with our mini-revolution, she might save herself. That was why I wanted to try inviting her. I'm such a good person. Dean continued her theory, Imani wants comfort, especially after losing her two friends. She hesitantly glanced at me. I stared back blankly. What was up with that look? I killed Boojum so Dean couldn't do her usual morally tormented heroine shtick. Was she moping about losing that opportunity? Dean shook her head. I won't be surprised if Imani just wants a shoulder to cry on. We can ask her ourselves. Myra gazed at something behind me. That her? A slender figure wrapped in a black jacket appeared behind an overgrown hedge. Taking off the hood, she revealed herself to be Imani. Part of me was surprised it was her, not some Tea Party dregs out for revenge. But that didn't mean this wasn't a trap. Imani timidly approached us but stopped upon seeing Myra. Imani probably assumed I'd come alone. She might be okay with Dean, but Myra was a new face. I walked toward Imani, holding my hands up. The two other BS blonde and blue followed. I hissed like a cat and shooed them away. Imani? I softly said, stepping closer. Let's start with a stupid question. Imani, are you alright? Reddish sunken eyes peered through a thin curtain of stray hairs. It was as if Imani had cried until no more tears came out. I couldn't remember the last time I fake cried. Real tears probably last dropped from my eyes when I was a kid. I wasn't even sure if my tears during Dad's funeral were genuine. I am not, Imani said. I kept silent, encouraging her to continue talking. She bowed, staring at the unkempt grass. My mother always says whenever I complain about bad things happening to me that we can't undo the past, only continue forward. I nodded but didn't say anything. But I don't want to continue forward, Imani whispered, nearly inaudible. Oh, I get it. Was this what Imani wanted to discuss? Boring. I should have gone with Mom instead of dealing with this crap. Are they okay? I asked. Boojum and Snark. Congratulations to me for remembering their names. Imani shook her head. Her hands by her sides balled into fists. They trembled. I moved even closer, approximating Dean-like behavior appropriate for this situation. What happened? Tell me. I reached for Imani's right hand and cupped it between mine. Not much issue if I was initiating physical contact, though a hug might be too big a leap for me. I haven't heard from them. They're not among the survivors. They might have been eaten. No. I don't want to think that. But if they're alive, they should have shown up by now, right? Tell me I'm wrong. Right? Wrong? Can you repeat the question? Don't lose hope, I said, trying to keep down my puke. I've heard from Dean of hostages mysteriously disappearing. Something like that. She mentioned there were no signs they were eaten. Just vanishing without a trace. Are you saying the same thing happened to Marco and Ronan? Imani's face twisted into absolute fright. Then they're really gone. No, I'm not saying that, I said. Dean was better at this than me. Think about it. I gave Imani's hand a squeeze with my right hand. She jolted a bit, feeling the bumps on my palm. If the tea party had an adversary that could make people disappear, I continued, then why bother segregating us into rooms? What was the point of taking hostages if their goal was to kill? It's not. The tea party had transported the missing people elsewhere. That might be where an adversary's power comes in. Are you sure? Not sure, I said, though I was. I slept through the latter half of what happened, I reminded Imani. Thanks for being by my side throughout, by the way. But I can certainly say to wait before jumping to conclusions. I already threw Imani an opening there if she wanted to admit she had discovered my secret. Marco's mom called me this morning, Imani said. I told her I didn't know where her son was. What should I say if she calls again? Tell her that you don't know. Because that's the truth. From what I've heard of them from Dean, I know that they're tough people. Don't write them off just yet, okay? Okay. I patted her hand. You're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. I was waiting for anyone to give me a medal for being such a great comforter. Are you worried about anything else? Yeah. She grasped my right hand, feeling what was under the glove. I know about. I smiled. I know that you know. Was this on your hand yesterday? She asked, running her fingers over the bumps under the cloth. Yes. But they were far smaller then. They grow each time I use my power. Actually, I wasn't sure what affected them. Using your power. Imani's eyes widened. Thanks for saving us. I'm sorry that it caused, that, to expand. Don't worry about it. I took off my glove. Dean stepped forward. I glared at her, nudging my head to hint that she should wait. She backed off. I presented my hand to Imani. There. It wasn't like this yesterday. I covered it with flesh-tone band-aids and makeup. Now, I just went with a glove. Too conspicuous. I'll think of something better. You have an artificial core like Dean. I nodded, putting my hand on my chest. I hoped she wouldn't ask to see it. Imani gingerly touched the crystals. They're so beautiful. I'd rather it's not there. If I could get rid of them but keep my powers, that'd be great. I could tell Imani interpreted what I said differently. You have a visible side effect. Imani frowned. Jubilee Jubjub told me there'd be no mark other than the artificial core itself that'd be attached to the chest, out of sight. With gritted teeth and blazing eyes that pushed back the sadness, she growled, she lied to me. Again. What was this reaction? I should take my advice about jumping to conclusions. I had thought that Imani set this meeting to admit she had discovered my secret. That didn't seem to be it. Something to do with Jubjub. I'm sorry that we kept it a secret from you. I motioned for Dean to come closer. Imani didn't protest. Dean's powers are known to our team, I explained to our Imani. But most of them don't know I have an artificial core too. I didn't tell Jubjub, Imani said. You're wound. You were shot, and I saw you regenerate. Sorry I couldn't protect you. But Jubjub doesn't know about it. The professor wanted to keep it a secret, so I did. Is this what you wanted to tell me? Imani shook her head. It's about something else that happened after I escaped from, her eyes flicked to Myra. Who is she, if I may ask? A fellow artificial core holder, I replied. Myra is a teammate from La Esperanza who came here when she heard the news of Adumbrey at the tech fair. Is she the leader of your group? Another clue as to Imani's problem. Our leader's name is Dario. He doesn't know that Myra came here. I beckoned for Myra to come closer. Well, Dario's not supposed to know, the same way he shouldn't know Dean and I are in Vegas. But we know what happened to that. Are you trying to hide from your leader? Imani warily eyed Myra. Why? Not exactly hide, I slowly said. But we didn't want him to know our whereabouts because we have some suspicions. Imani's eyes danced, her brain running fast. Suspicion that something's not right about this whole thing, I added. The professor, our team's fighting the Adumbrey. Don't you feel the same way? Yes. Knowing that there were other teams relieved me. Made me happy we're not alone. But it is suspicious that there seem to be multiple groups scattered in cities. There are also other things Jubjub, she did. Imani stopped herself and shook her head. To show you can trust us, I said. How about Myra tell you about some stuff about Dario and the professor that you'll find interesting? Hi, there. Myra cheerily waved, coming on a bit too strong. Tell her about Kelsey, I said. Okay then. I'm not sure how to begin my story, but here goes. Myra started with Kelsey becoming an Adumbrey, which led to joining Dario's team in return for help from the professor the suppressors. Blah, blah, blah. Dean listened intently, this was her first time hearing about this. We reached the part where Kelsey transformed at the law school cafeteria, jumped out the window, and disappeared without a trace. There was no body, blood, nothing at all, Myra said. If my sister died, the waves would have washed her to shore. But she didn't die. She's an Adumbrey, a stupid fall wouldn't get her. Someone took her, and I think Dario and the professor had something to do with it. The man who attacked us at Sanders, Dean butted in, looking at me. The professor could have sent him to kill witnesses of Kelsey's transformation. We might be wrong that he's an Adumbrey, he could be someone with an artificial core. Hey, that's a good, wrong theory. Why didn't I think of that? I glanced at Myra, she was concentrating on the angel sculpture before picking up the story and tacking how Dean and I joined the professor. That's a gist of our part. Back to Kelsey and why Myra thinks the professor has her. This may sound crazy, but just keep an open mind. Myra laid out the basis for her suspicions, from the special suppressor Kelsey took that should have worked for hours, to the surprising resources of allegedly one rogue scientist, to the professor's mind-boggling reach in erasing our traces. And managing multiple groups, I added, a fact we only knew yesterday. Myra then highlighted the insane implications of the artificial core and the suppressors. Not only did the professor give them out like candy, but the world's governments weren't focusing their resources on almost miracle inventions like these. It was apparent that those with artificial cores were test subjects of a sinister project. Again, with the multiple groups, I said. Makes it easier to see there's some experimenting stuff going on. What you're saying is that Jubilee told me is a lie, Imani said after Myra was done with her sales talk. Not everything, Myra said. Most things, I chimed in. I'm sure this is hard for you to believe, but I believe it, Imani said. Parts of it. Erasing evidence of us, I know about that. Myra, Dean, and I looked at each other. Can you tell us more about it? I asked Imani. The people with me when we escaped, Imani looked into my eyes with despair. They're all gone. Gone. You mean the Tea Party got to them? No, that's not it. Imani narrated how they escaped the Greaves Convention Center through an underground passage, a large sewer pipe or something, and that they did reach safety. Jubjub was supposed to take them to the police. She separated me from them. I didn't understand why I'm human and had nothing to fear from the authorities, but I still followed her. Imani swallowed and closed her eyes. A couple of teardrops rolled down her cheeks. Dean, being Dean, patted Imani's shoulder. They're dead, aren't they? I softly said. That was the only conclusion for how Imani acted. They didn't make it to the police. Imani nodded. The police published names and pictures of recorded survivors for the public to easily find friends and relatives. I checked and checked all night long. Until the morning, I checked. I didn't sleep. Every time there's an update. Tesh and Kira? Dean asked. They're not there. Imani cried out. I remember all of their faces. Dean hugged Imani. None of them. No one. Imani broke down and sobbed while talking. I checked again before coming here. My brain didn't bother understanding her blathering nonsense. I gave Myra a sidelong glance, closed my eyes briefly, and shook my head once. It's not time for our recruitment drive, I was trying to tell Myra. We had to do this carefully. This needed time, but we also couldn't take too long, or Imani might try to meet Jubjub and get herself erased as well. With Boojum and Snark gone, and Imani, just a human, Jubjub might restart her team. After a few minutes, Imani calmed down. Dean led her to a bench, or what was left of it, the iron backrest mostly stripped away, and sat beside her. There's a voice in my heart that I should talk to you, Erend. Imani looked up at me. I continuously prayed to the Mother Core while waiting for the police bulletin to update. This morning something prodded me to write a note to you. Thank the Mother Core that it reached you. I wasn't sure if you were still staying in that building or if you maybe left the city. The receptionist gave me your envelope, I said. Envelope? Imani tilted her head. This one. I fished the envelope from my pocket. Did you put a flyer here too? I unfolded the red paper with golden borders. It was for a cruise to Mexico on a ship called Islas de Sangre. It's in the same envelope as your note, I said. Just asking if you put this here or maybe the... I didn't have an envelope, Imani replied, brows pressed together as she examined the flyer. I gave my folded note to the woman at your condo's front desk. She probably placed it in one to not get lost. Oh, you're right. I turned over the envelope and found the condo manager's logo on the upper right. I must have missed it while puzzling over its contents. Weird that the receptionist included a flyer. What's that about? Myra peered over the paper Imani held. A cruise with a newly remodeled ship from New Los Angeles to Catalina and Ensenada, Mexico. Fancy, eh? I've heard of this. Imani paused, closing her eyes. We waited for her to explain. Her lips trembled for a couple of seconds. Marco, he's Boojum. Marco and his girlfriend wanted to get on this cruise. They were looking forward to it. Sounds enticing. Myra grinned at me. This Marco guy got the right idea. Maybe he can recommend us an island for Erin to hide in. Boojum is one of her teammates, I whispered, not so subtly elbowing Myra. We told you about him. Can I see that? Dean pulled the flyer from Imani's hands and folded it partially crosswise to show only the top part. She underlined with her nail the line in a smaller font beneath the name of the cruise and other details. Royal Saressa Cruise Lines, I read. My eyes flicked to the name of the ship. Cogs in my brain turned. Saressa? Myra said. Am I crazy, or does that sound familiar? Bianca Saressa, Dean said. Their family owns this cruise ship line. Dario told us about this when we planned on getting close to her. She explained to Imani. Long story, but the short is that Bianca was trying to become an Adumbri. Myra whistled. A freaky coincidence you got an ad for this, errand. Yes, a coincidence, I echoed, though I didn't think so. In the many times I had passed through the condo's lobby through the years, no one had ever given me any flyers or ads or whatever. And what would the condo manager have to do with cruise ships? The true coincidence was that Bianca and Imani delivered their messages around the same time. The receptionist placed them in the same envelope to give to me. I took the flyer back. The Islas de Sangre finished renovations 3 years, I mumbled, my eyes crawling through every inch of the paper. The ship was to dock at New Los Angeles, the smaller twin city of La Esperanza. A vast gorge separated the two cities, the path of the Adumbri Titan, one of the most powerful in history, that sunk a chunk of California during the war. Together, La Esperanza and New Los Angeles used to be the old Los Angeles city several decades ago. I had visited New Los Angeles for my work before law school. It was a far more relaxed place than the cramped concrete jungle of La Esperanza. I say relaxed in terms of buildings and development, but that didn't mean it had fewer people. It was touristy as hell, not that hell would be a nice tourist spot with the beaches packed by as many people as the grains of sand there. An automatic no-no for me. Just the thought of the masses of bodies made me want to lash out. But it seemed I had to go to New Los Angeles and get on board this cruise, another activity I hated for the same reason. Islas de Sangre, Dean said. Islands of Blood. An odd name for a ship. You speak Spanish? Myra wondered. Are there language classes in your fancy prep school or something? I don't speak Spanish and didn't go to prep school. Just a normal high school. Normal? Myra scoffed. Yeah, right. Dean ignored Myra, continuing to explain, Islas means islands, obviously. And sangre probably has something to do with blood. Like the drink, sangria. Islands of Blood, really odd. And creepy too. An odd name, I nodded, nonchalantly folding the flyer. Islands of Blood. Blood was red. Red Island. A stretch? Maybe. If it wasn't for Bianca offering to help me take down the 2MS in return for teaching her how to become a true Adumbri while retaining her human mind. Then it wasn't so stretchy anymore. I was almost sure Bianca sent me this flyer not personally, she was too conspicuous to walk around Vegas unnoticed. She was telling me that this cruise ship was connected in some way to Red Island. What if Red Island wasn't the actual name of the place of freaky Adumbri experiments? What if it just came to be known as that because of the ship going to it? I didn't want to share my theory with the other bees. What bee should Imani be? Because I couldn't reveal my connection to Bianca. Let's get back to the topic, I said. Imani, I know this is a hard time, Imani. She stared at me with unblinking eyes. I waited for a couple of seconds. She still hadn't blinked or said anything or moved whatever. It was like she was frozen in place. Dean beside her was the same, turned into a wax statue. Myra too. I clicked my tongue in annoyance. This had happened a couple of times before. She was going to show up soon. From an overcast day, the clouds parted to reveal not the sun but endless stars in a sea of black. Gossamer ribbons of different colors weaved above, overpowering the smattering distant lights, turning the momentary night bright. It was as if I was inside a kaleidoscope. Turning around to observe the sky drastically change, I noticed the headless angel statue detaching from its pedestal on the fountain. It levitated and crumbled like a cookie, the dozens of fragments reforming into a mask. Her mask. The mask she didn't want to lend to me. It was half white and half black, a broad smile cut into both sides. Golden rays radiated out of both eye holes. Ancient cracks, cobwebs of darkness marred its surface. It gently rotated as it ascended. The fountain on the ground also broke apart. The debris put itself back together, rearranging into something different, a chair. It was only briefly that the chair, adorned with beautiful, symmetrical carvings, was in one piece. Sharp lines divided it anew as stone aged thousands of years in seconds. However, the parts still held the shape of a chair, individual pieces floating about half an inch from each other. Wow, such an extravagant entrance, I dryly said as the mask descended to the chair. I blinked. A woman now sat on the chair, wearing the mask. Spooky errand. She wore a fitting black suit and pants threaded with golden lines in geometric designs. Underneath the suit, she had a white dress shirt and a black tie. And on her shoulders settled a snowy white fur coat as if clouds surrounded her. A heavy gauntlet made of interlocking plates of gold wrapped her right hand. The fingers of the imposing metal glove curved into wicked claws. What do you think of it? Spooky errand asked. She removed her mask, revealing my own face with a few minor differences. Her burning ruby eyes were like lasers firing through her ghostly white hair, lazily flowing about her head as if blown by the wind in slow motion. The polished, marble-like skin of her cheeks reflected the array of lights swirling around us on its unearthly complexion. Spookerand let go of her mask, leaving it hanging in the air, then gestured at our surroundings. Do you like it? Her lips shaped words, but there was no sound. Her voice popped inside my head as if it was my own inner thought. Very cinematic, I truthfully said. Too bad you don't have background music that goes with it. She held up a claw and tapped her temple. Nice idea, me. I'll try working on that next time. I narrowed my eyes. There was something different with Spooky Aaron's gauntlet. It had a sprinkling of dents and cracks, with a few notches chipped away. It looked old and weathered, like her mask and chair. I might not be an expert on otherworldly shit, but I could guess what was happening. I had expected this when we first met, but seeing Spooky Aaron's gauntlet in this state really hammered in that there was a countdown for me. Knowing the deadline for an important project was one thing, checking the calendar as days went by was totally different. Are you taking over my body? I bluntly asked. You mean our body? I'm already in here. Oh, come on, I pointed at her gauntlet. That thing is slowly bleeding into the real world and... How do you know which one's the real world? I snorted. My world, whatever. I don't care if it's real or if there are other worlds. Anyway, your gauntlet thingy is changing. I bet that's forming on my hand in the real, I mean, my world, isn't it? You don't want it? Spooky Aaron said, pouting with fake hurt as if I had rejected a heartfelt gift. It looks cool, doesn't it? And it has many uses, like you can scratch your back with it. Yeah, it looks awesome. But I don't want something like that permanently welded to my hand. Super obvious it's not normal. People will call me out on that. They're just jealous that they don't have a cool backscratcher. Spooky Errand waved her golden gauntlet. That's not it. It was excruciating trying to get a straight answer out of her. I tried a different question. What happens if your whole glove materializes on my hand in my world? A new backscratcher. Though Spooky Errand was bullshitting me, she indirectly confirmed it'd eventually happen. I followed it up, then you'll take over my body after that? She wrote in the air with her finger as if conducting a choir. Sing it with me. Mayumayumiya. Mayumayumiya, I joined in with a random melody, my cheeks raising in a half-smile. Right. There was no point worrying about this. Spooky Errand was already in my head. As people with delusional disorders couldn't recognize their delusions, figuring out if my thoughts were still my own was a wasted effort. But that didn't mean I was giving up. Our game was still on. Isn't it fun to sing? Spooky Errand placed her fingers on her cheeks and pushed up a smile. I shrugged. I'm not much of a singer. Debatable. No, it's not. I'm going to debate it. Mayo are a good singer. Even if you give me the ability to sing well, my soft voice is not cut out for it. I absent-mindedly checked my dysfunctional dream team, still frozen solid. I had thought of punching Myra, wondering if it'd have any effect after Spooky Errand left. Probably not. Spooky Errand snickered. I must say, the start of our little get-togethers has improved a lot. You're no longer leading with dumb questions like if you're dead. Am I dead? I turned to her with a mischievous wink. There was a level of relaxedness I could reach only when with Spooky Errand. Hard to explain. Getting trapped in another dimension with a sinister entity wasn't a vacation, but I was incredibly at ease. Hey! I was praising you. Spooky Errand playfully tilted her head left. Well, asking if I'm taking over your body is also a dumb question. She snickered, parting her lips as she laughed, revealing cute bunny teeth that also applied to mine. Narcissist, much? She said. I'm a very down-to-earth person, you know. Before, I'd be wary and irritated if she read my mind, but I got used to it. No, we're not. Spooky Errand leaned back over the left armrest of her chair, almost spilling out of it as she energetically waved her outstretched arms. We're in space. Look. Very funny, I said, scrunching my nose. Anyway, what's up with the visit? I was in the middle of a small meeting. Just checking up on you. Spooky Errand righted herself in her seat. Did you have to bring them here? I jabbed my thumb in my dysfunctional team's way. They're not really here, duh. You do know we're in your head. But I wanted an audience, so. So, you brought them along here. Just ideas of them, I guess. Speaking of bringing along, did you send Imani my way? No. She raised a brow at me. I can't affect your real world, as you called it, except only through you. It's just that you're good at making friends. And I'm proud of you for that. What about my dad? Did you have something to do with that? Spooky Errand rolled her eyes. Fascinating to see the crimson glow partially dim as she did. Didn't we just talk about dumb questions? I'll retract being proud of you if you keep asking them. Was that him? I insisted, figuring I had enough rapport with Spooky Errand to pester her a bit. She could confirm by reading my mind that I was just messing with her. How about you check if you're that interested instead of asking me? Do you want to know if it was him? I looked up, taken off guard by the counter-question. Okay, Spooky Errand was reading my mind right there. Not really, I think, I trailed, unsure of my stance. It's just that if that was Dad, then isn't that too much of a coincidence? Dunno. Spooky Errand replied. Her face didn't give away anything. I sense you have other dumb questions lined up. Get it out of your system. On the topic of coincidence, I met another Adumbri who could control herself. Not sure, but I just assumed, from the way she acted, that her human brain was pretty much at the helm. It's not an actual question. What is it, then? I approached Spooky Errand to show confidence. Each step was like wading in pancake syrup, bringing me no closer to her even though she was just right there. I smirked as our eyes met. I'm just saying I'll win our game. I will get control of my body. This was the most direct I'd been with her, and I was steeling myself for her reaction. Spooky Errand grasped the blocky stone armrests of her chair and leaned forward. Her eyes blazed as the world dimmed. Like a brain freeze, I could physically feel her following words in my head, distinctly different from my thoughts. You think you have a chance of winning this? Showing your true colors? I said, trying to keep my head high as intense pressure compressed me from all sides. But I wasn't scared. I knew she was having fun. Because I was having fun. Yeah, I'm kind of light purple. Spooky Errand swung her legs as she chuckled. Everything returned to normal. Rather, what it was before, which wasn't normal. And you're right, dear Errand. It's fun. Everything that has happened so far has been fun. Mayumiya. I'm glad you're entertained. If we were the same, shouldn't I get that high of happiness too? Still, a sense of impending excitement was at the back of my mind, anticipation and excitement for what was coming next for me. Perhaps, I could find the thrill I was looking for there. Tell me about it, said Spooky Errand, poking inside my head again. She propped her left elbow on her seat's armrest and cupped her chin with her palm. Life and death situations are getting stale, I said. They can't give me the same kick as before. I'm not sure I suck at psychoanalyzing myself, but I think it's because I'm reacting to things. Bullshit comes, and I try to stay above the flood. It might be different if I start shit myself. And how do you plan to go about that? For starters, going on a cruise ship will be fun. I made a face. I hate cruises, but if I could get enough people on board with it, literally and figuratively, I might change my mind. I can probably make it fun. Spooky Errand raised a brow. Oh. Is that so? Maybe I can get Dario and other people from the professor's side there. I can also pit Big Marcy against his brother Mark. Not sure if I could get Corbrings there, but a few bid agents might be fine. We'll have to see what I can wrangle up. I'm going to do some major cleaning operations. Such a responsible person you are, she said. You're making me even prouder. The middle of the ocean will be a great place for it. No one can escape. I smiled at Spooky Errand, also feeling proud of myself. Then it's a whole new thing once we reach Red Island. I don't even know what to expect there. For once, I'm excited about a surprise which is surprising. Mayo are going to have so much fun. I bet. Spooky Errand left her seat. Her gauntlet disappeared, and she raised her bare right hand. Without thinking, I touched her hand with my right hand, palm to palm, fingers to fingers. Our hands were the same size. Warm like living human flesh. Spooky Errand curled her fingers in between mine, grasping my hand. I did the same. No wadd'll make it even more fun. What? Use the newest mask I lent you. At the risk of asking a dumb question, what does it do? I kinda don't want to use it because. Errand? Imani said. What were you saying? I blinked a couple of times. The cloudy sky was above. Imani, Dean, and Myra were moving. The headless cherub with the graffitied ass had returned to its place on the reconstructed fountain. I was back. Not missing a beat, I continued my reality as if Spooky Errand hadn't interrupted it. Imani, I know this is a hard time for you, but you have to make a decision.